and I went into that election as the sitting president. They called for a debate. I made myself available. I debated Nana Akufo-Addo. In 2016, I was the sitting president. IEA organized the debate. I made myself available. Nana Akufo-Addo refused to take part in the debate. In 2020, he was the sitting president. He refused to take part in a debate. But the one who responded to me when we made the call for the debate is the current flag bearer of the NPP, who is asking me for a debate. Has he forgotten what he said? That I should go to Sangma and go and debate the farmers of Sangma who don't have fertilizer. That I should go to Abosokai and go and debate the spare parts people who cannot buy dollar because dollar is 3 point something to 3 cedis point something to the dollar. He said I should go and debate the taxi drivers and the drivers who cannot buy petrol. This is the same Baumia today asking me for a debate. As for him, the people he will debate are many. He should debate the nurses who are sitting at home who have not been posted. He should go and debate the teachers who are home who have not been posted and debate them about their licensure exams. He should go and debate the fishermen who cannot get premix and they have to go and buy premix from hairdressing salons. He should go and debate the unemployed youth who have finished school 4 years ago and to date cannot find work. Has he forgotten? That is what he told me. So today, why do you want to debate me? All the people you said I should go and debate, their situation is worse now than it was in 2016. So you go and debate them, and tell them why you have mismanaged this economy in 8 years, why their situation is worse, even though you promised that you were the economic wizard and that you were coming to change the economy of this country. Go and explain and apologize to the people of Ghana. You see, normally when we complain about Electoral Commission, people think that we're just making noise. But their actions and their demeanor show that they favor one political party. Something happened on the 10th of this month. Electoral Commission wrote a letter disqualifying our parliamentary candidate. So even before we have cast one ballot, they are putting one constituency in the bag for MPP. I mean, how can you do that? In May, there was a primary, and some people were aggrieved about the primary. So they went to court for an injunction against the May primary and asked the court to order a rerun. What they wanted from the court was a rerun of the primary. So what did NDC do? In September, we said, okay, in order to resolve the issue, we are going to rerun the primary. So all of you who are interested, come and apply. We rerun the primary, the same person emerged. Then the person has filed their nomination. Then somebody writes to you, the Electoral Commission, and say the person was put under injunction for the May primary, not the September one. And based on the May primary and that injunction, you write and say you are disqualified. Meanwhile, your same Electoral Commission, even though the injunction had been placed on the May one, you came and supervised the September one, and you declared her the winner. And yet, you get a letter and you quickly write, because you're in a hurry to disqualify her, the nomination period has passed, NDC cannot put up a candidate at this time, So MPP will have one free constituency. This is what we say, that this Electoral Commission is not a neutral commission. And the point is, you know that if you say she can't run, even if she gets a judgment after you've printed the ballot, there's no way that you can replace her on the ballot. And so wait till the final analysis, make it a fait accompli, give NPP one free constituency, Amenfi Central, even before any Ghanaian has cast a ballot. This is completely unfair. You know, Mr. Tete, Electoral Commission, go ask your legal department about this case. And so we are also going to injunct the Electoral Commission. You cannot print parliamentary ballot papers unless the court hears this matter and makes a determination on it. And so, with an Electoral Commission that is so biased, NDC, listen to me, what we have to do is that we must go into this election with our own Electoral Commission. When Azuma was going to box, and we said that Australia, they'll go and cheat him, he said, I'm going into the ring with my own referee. And his referee was his fist. After he beat Jeff Fenech, and Jeff Fenech was on the ground, there's no referee in the world who can declare Jeff Fenech, who is lying on the ground, can't get up, the winner. We're going to beat MPP, knock them out, first round, hands down, so that no Electoral Commission can declare them the winner. But before that can happen, we must protect the vote. And let's not leave it to only our party agents to protect the vote. All of us must protect the vote. And that's what I'm saying, at 5 o'clock, all of you go back to your polling station. Don't leave only the two party agents there. Where you voted, go back at 5 o'clock and stay there till they finish counting the parliamentary and the presidential votes, and they fill the pink sheets. They will paste a copy on the wall. You take a copy of it before you can go home. Because Yenya Breko.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
And a good morning to you watching Pan-African Television on your TV sets, digital, and of course, we are also live on social media. Facebook, Pan-African Television, YouTube, the same page, Pan-African Television. You get to watch us live. We are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. We are live on many other affiliate radio stations across the country. I'll be sharing some with you. My name is Sena Nombo, and I welcome you to today's edition of the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live from the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah studios of Pan-African Television here at Abelemkpe. And we are broadcasting around Ghana. Well, as we always do, today we have an election ahead. So we'll look forward to that election. We'll deal with a topic that we've discussed on many other shows. We'll go back to that topic and talk about who wins election 2024. We'll talk about that. And then we'll move on and have a discussion on what is transpiring in Parliament. Many people have called it a constitutional crisis. Some say it's a crisis of leadership. Some say it's just a lack of principle. What is really happening in Parliament? Whatever it may be, there's a crisis in Parliament. How do we deal with it? That is a second topic we will be discussing. And then we'll move on to the matter of the cedi. It looks like everybody has stopped paying attention, except if you have to. Because if you look at the cedi to the dollar exchange rate now, you'll be marveled. Well, we'll be talking about the woes of the cedi, the continued depreciation, what is accounting for it, and what we need to do urgently to halt it. Or do we just keep watching on? And then we take it to Zambia, because the Zambian president has been sacking some judges who made a decision a few years ago that affected him. Those judges stood on the side of his opponent, and he's waited all this while and has finally decided that it's time to show them small pepper. So those are the issues we'll be discussing today on the matter of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Do share a thought or two on the issues as we go along. We'd like to hear what you think. Well, we'll start with the discussion on who wins the 2024 elections. We are in 2024. December is not too far ahead. In fact, today's date is the 26th day of October. So October is coming to an end. November is the only clear month we have ahead of the elections. Question is, who wins? Depending on who you're speaking to, the polls, most of it, show that the NDC will win the next election. But there are other parties that will beg to disagree. And we'll start today's discussion with a man who was in an Ashanti regional capital of Kumasi last week, lawyer Andrew Appiah Dankwa. But first, let me introduce my other panelists on the show. Of course, we also have Ishaq Awudu. Ishaq Awudu rose through the ranks of the People's National Convention to the General Secretary position. He's been a consistent activist of that party, and it's nice to see him get to that high position. Ishaq, nice to see you and a good morning to you.
Good morning, Senna.
And congratulations.
Thank you once again.
I hope your new position is treating you well.
Well, you know that I assumed the position at a very difficult time. You know that we had limited time to organize ourselves ahead of the 2024 elections. And coupled with the fact that there have been this protracted leadership crisis in the party, which does not show any sign of abating. But I can assure you that we have taken upon ourselves the responsibility to restore the PNC to its glory days. We shall succeed, inshallah.
We pray you do so. And of course, we'll also be joined on the show by the deputy spokesperson for the John Mahama campaign, Beatrice Annan, and then Alhaji Inusa Fuseni is former member of parliament for Tamale Central. The two of them will join us to complete our panel for today. Like I said, we are starting the very first discussion with the Alanites, lawyer Andrew Appiah Dankwa, on who wins the 2024 elections.
Yes, so let me take this opportunity and wish you a good morning. I think it's been a while since we met.
Yes.
Wish my own brother Ishaq a good morning. Congratulate him on the assumption of his new position. I pray that he succeeds in not only shaping and building his party, but like I always say on this platform, I believe that is one of the critical duties of all political parties is in helping shape the political culture of this country, and so that Ishaq succeeds in that endeavor was really, really critical. Wish your lovely viewers a good morning, and I don't know why my friends in the NDC are always late. It's part of the mindset change that needs amending. Anyway, yeah, I see, Sana, you are really determined to turn me into a prophet this morning. I see you are really determined to turn me into a prophet this morning. Because to ask us the question that says that we should come and see who win elections come 2024 is asking me to be something I'm not. Obviously, I'm not a prophet. I'm just a simple young man who loves this country, who believes that for the interest of this country, then we need to make Honorable Alan Chemantin the next president of Ghana. And I'm not a prophet. Let me take this opportunity to wish the next president of Ghana, Honorable John Kojo Martin, and his incoming vice, our own Kwame Osudanso, a very good morning. So, Sana, Alan will win the next election. Alan will win emphatically. Alan will win emphatically, and that's what I have to say about that. But I think most critically, we need to look at where we are as a country. We need to look at the advice that the directive principle of state policy, the constitutional directive principle of state policy give us to consider when we are making this most important decision. We need to understand exactly what we are voting for. Because I think over the years, or rather to put it in a better way, we have a leadership crisis. I know in the second topic you are looking at all the various crises, but I think if there's one thing that is clear, there's a fundamental lack of leadership in this country, and that fundamental lack of leadership stems from the fact that when the people of Ghana, the repository of sovereign power, whenever we've made that decision as to who to put the executive powers of Ghana into, we think about the party, we don't think about the person. Because really, we don't put executive powers into the hands of a political party. We put executive powers into the hands of a human being. So in the mind of the Constitution, it was asking for a leadership, a leader. So in other jurisdictions, I understand that political powers are placed in the hands of political parties, and they choose their cabinet and they govern. But in Ghana, I think our constitution is pretty much clear on that. Now, when it comes to the executive, when we go and when we cast our votes, we are not going to vote for a political party. We are going to vote for a human being. The political party may sponsor, but that power is in the hands of the human being. And so we should not allow for the parties, we should not allow our views of the parties, we should not allow people to hide behind the reputation of political parties and assume leadership. Because if there's one thing that Nanado's leadership has taught us, is that Nanado and the people, majority of the people histories, not all of them, are charlatans. They do not even believe in the ideals of the NPP. Because if you understand what the NPP stands for, it stands for small government, stand for highly decentralized government, stand for building the private sector, stand for building the right economic environment, stands for environmental integrity. Against Galamsey. You understand? Believe in forging that one Ghana where your tribe, your party does not matter. And you juxtapose that against the kind of leadership Nanado has given us. A leadership that is highly centralized as against decentralized. A leadership that is very partisan in nature. I don't think he's the president of the NPP. You understand? A leadership that is very divisive. A leadership that is very tribal. A leadership that has no regard for the environmental integrity of this country. A leadership that simply does not work, that is ready to sleep aloof and watch all of our lives put at peril because of his love for his party as against his country. A leadership that has seen the deterioration of the economy of this country. A leadership that has killed the private sector. And that failure falls squarely on the shoulders of Nana Akufo-Addo and His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. It falls squarely on them. And if there's any role the NPP played will also be classified as having failed, not because they wielded the executive powers, but because they haven't sponsored somebody to become the president of Ghana, believing that he respects the values of their party, having delivered a leadership that is in all intents and purposes adverse to their core values and principles, have sat aloof and allowed him to deliver a leadership which is very different from what they believe in, and they've sat down and allowed this calamity to befall on Ghana. Then they cannot exonerate themselves when we are portioning blame. It is for all these reasons why the people of Ghana need to think critically about the decision they are going to make. Because in the directive principles of state policy, where we are advised as to what we should consider when we are making decisions. And you see, we need to understand that the directive principle of state policy places that first burden on the citizens of Ghana. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, let me read Article 34 of the Constitution. It says that the directive principles of state policy contained in this chapter shall guide all citizens. First of all, shall guide all citizens. Parliament, the President, the Judiciary, the Council of State, the Cabinet, political parties, and other bodies and persons in applying or interpreting one, this Constitution or any other law, and in taking and implementing any policy decisions for the establishment of a just and free society. Two, they said the president shall report it. You understand? So that is the advice to the citizens of Ghana, because we make the first decision in the 4-year governance cycle. The first decision is the decision by the citizens of this country. And the Constitution is advising us that when we are taking that decision, when we are making that decision, there are certain considerations that we must have. The first one is what? The political consideration. You understand? The first one is the political consideration. The second one is the economic consideration. You have a social consideration. You have a cultural consideration. And this advice falls in line with Thomas Hobbes' writings in the 11th about the social contract. Because what is going to happen? That after 7th December and on 7th January, we are going to sign a social contract, not with a political party, insofar as the executive powers are concerned. We are going to sign a social contract with an individual. We are going to sign a social contract with an individual. And the purpose of that social contract is to the effect that every single Ghanaian, as sovereign as we may be, are going to cede a bit of our powers to that individual. We are going to cede a bit of those powers, the powers that God himself gave us, powers that nature gave us. We are going to cede a bit to an individual, not to a political party. We are going to cede those powers to the individual. Now, the individual is supposed to use those powers. That individual is going to wield the executive powers of this country. That individual is going to be the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. That individual is going to be the trustee of the natural resources of this country. That individual is going to be the trustee and is supposed to protect the environmental integrity of this country. That individual is going to be the wielder of the fiscal power of this country. When I say fiscal power, that individual is the one going to determine how much money we are supposed to be taxed. He's going to determine how he's going to spend the monies. You understand? The finances of this country. That individual is going to make those decisions. That if you're going to give that individual all those powers, you understand, all those powers, then it means that we need to interrogate the character of that individual. We need to interrogate the competence of that individual. You understand? We need to interrogate the track record of that individual. We need to interrogate the commitment levels of that individual. We need to interrogate the integrity of that individual. Because if there's one fundamental reasons for the problems we are in as a country, then it is as a result of the fundamental lack of integrity by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. The fundamental lack of commitment by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo to his obligations under one, the social contract we signed with him on 7th January 2016 and on 7th January 2021. A lack of respect for his duty and obligation as a trustee, to the extent that he sat down, allowed Galamsey to destroy our natural resources, to the extent that our lives are at peril. That's the consequence of giving power to somebody who does not have integrity, who does not have commitment, who did not have any credible track record of leadership, but who hid behind the colors of his party, the reputation of his party, and was granted executive powers. And he's used those powers in a manner adverse to our collective interest. We have that history. So it means that the decision we are going to make on the 7th of December, come 2024, which will culminate in the signing of the social contract come 7th January 2025, should be a decision that we should take diligently. Diligently. Because the person we are going to give our powers to will be tasked with the responsibility one of building the political structures of this country. Because clearly, so I don't think we can have a debate as to the lack or the loss of credibility of political leadership in this country. When you define what democracy is, democracy simply is power or government of the people, government by the people, and government for the people. Can you say in all sincerity that in Ghana, especially under the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo, that we have a government which is by the people, that we have a government which is for the people? Because our system largely is not decentralized. Beyond we going to vote on 7th December, what political decisions are we involved in? Are we involved in? What steps have they taken to build that decentralized system that we need to make true that call of democracy, that it should be not only power of the people, but also power by and for the people? And how is that this democracy, how has it benefited us? You get a picture. So it is imperative, like I said, that we look into the character, into the commitments, into the competence, and and also into the message of the people. Now, on 7th December, we are fortunate, we are privileged, also to have Alan Chemantin on the ballot box. I know that arguments have been made, and I know today don't make those arguments. Oh, that he was part of Nanado's. You see, we don't have an MPP government, we have Nanado's government. And fortunately, a former minister will come, so he will explain better how the ministers they work. See, when you're a minister, like I told you and I said earlier, that the president has in his hands the power of fiscal policy. So you, the minister, your duty is to push policies. It's your duty to push policies. And let me welcome our sister, Beatrice, you are late. But better late than never. You understand? When you are a minister, the power you have is the power to formulate and push policy. Now, as to how much money is granted to those policies, is the prerogative of the president, not so. It's the prerogative of the president. So if the president, the policy you are pushing is not a priority for him, it's not a priority for him, then your policy, no matter how beautiful it may be, cannot have the necessary impact that it would have if it's given priority. So, for example, we all know, and the city is dying. We all say it. Oh, the city is dying because we don't produce, we import, we do this. And so, if you recall, in 2016, one of the key policies that Nanado campaigned on was to bring about an economic transformation. And one of the key programs he said was going to bring about that economic transformation was the one district, one factory program. Not so. Now, when you go through our budget, how much money? Because you see, Biden said, his dad said once, that show me where your money is going, and I'll know your commitment. Now, so you have a president who claimed that he was going to transform the economy of Ghana. And one of the key policies was to give one district, one factory. And also, that's what he said. So how can you justify, of all the plenty monies he's raised, record monies they've raised through revenue, of the record loans they've taken, record loans, what are the levels? It's over 700 billion also. Yeah. Over 700 billion Ghana cedis.
That's a debt.
And how much loans have we procured? Although the debt includes interest and all those things. But if you have 700, because the interest and all will not be more than the principal. So let's say, assuming it's even 500 billion, how can you justify spending about just 400 million Ghana cedis, not dollar, 400 million Ghana cedis on the program that is meant to be to bring about the economic transformation? Senna. So clearly, Alan, we all know that Alan is the initiator the promoter of the 1D1F. But it did not get the backing of the president. Because the president would rather spend 5 billion on NAPCO, on a program they claim was going to create about less than 100,000 jobs. Even that one has to be interrogated and investigated. You understand? And you spend 400 million on 1D1F, clearly. Because Alan does not have the power of fiscal policy. He does not have that power. That power is in the hands of the president and his vice. Their priority was NAPCO. Their priority was to do something to represent something. How many jobs did NAPCO create? What was the impact? How much did NAPCO contribute to the GDP of this country? Also, when you go to the Ministry of Trade, even the outside right now, you see a beautiful 10-point industrialization agenda. Because one of the arguments that has always been made is that we needed to diversify our economy from just cocoa to palm, to automobiles, to pharmaceuticals. You understand? How much money has government, the NADO, the world of fiscal policy, the power of fiscal policy, how much money did he spend on this 10-point industrialization agenda? Because once again, his priority was not in boosting or investing in the productive sectors of the economy. That was not his priority. He had his own agenda. And that's why the CD is running more than Usain Bolt. It is heading towards 17 cities. Not so. It's heading towards 17 cities. It's in a free fall because what needed to be done, what deliberately needed to be done to boost local productivity, the president simply did not do it. You understand? Right now, we have a job crisis in this country. We have a job crisis in this country, not so. There are not jobs. It's reached a state where it's a national security threat. So this tells you that you need a leadership that will boost the small and medium scale enterprises. Because if there's one thing that is right, to create jobs, then government needs to deliberately build its SMEs in terms of what? Its capacity, their capacity. In terms of creating a system where they have easy access to funding. You understand? And indeed, you can even use those governmental interventions to also solve one critical problem that we've been developing for a very long time. That is the formalization of our economy, which is largely informal. So Ghanaians need to ask themselves those critical questions. Which of the candidates, which of the human beings presenting themselves has a program that's going to solve these fundamental problems with our economy? And also look at their track record, their commitment levels. You get a picture. Now, to deal with some of these problems, there are two economic ways. There are two ways, and there are two ways in which Alhaji and Alhaji is saying. So when you read the directive principle of state policy, it states that one, that the principle, underlying principle that should govern our economic objectives is that one, government should create the right environmental, economic environment. Two, and that private sector will be the engine of growth. Those are the policies. So that one, you, the government, use your power and your role in the economy, which is one, your fiscal policy, two, your monetary policy, to create that stable economic environment. You understand? And you can also use those same policies, your fiscal, the monetary, to also incentivize private sector participation in your economy. You understand? Now, beyond the Great Transformational Plan, which is the blueprint to how Alhaji is going to organize and handle his executive power if it's granted him. He mentions about serious expenditure control. He talks about tackling the interest rate regime. He talks about debt management. Because those issues are the issues that will either create that right economic environment. Because like pertains, let's say in farming, if you don't have the right environment in your soil and around, you can plant, it won't germinate. And you talk to businessmen, and we have a very toxic economic or business environment. You are talking, when you go to the bank, you are talking about interest rates which are in excess of 30%. You understand? You are talking about a very unstable dollar. How can you do business in this country and survive? You have a situation where government is seriously competing with private sector over the small capital available in the economy. So how can SMEs grow? So you have a situation where majority of SMEs, beyond they being invisible to the government, you have a situation where those SMEs are just important because the cost of production in this country is unbelievable. You can't produce and compete with any product. See, it is for these reasons why some of us believe that if indeed, and really that's the case, that in the intent of the framers of our constitution, executive powers should be given to a human being, not a political party, a human being. And that human being's ability to lead should not be affected because he's sponsoring himself. You get a picture. If that's the case, then we need to go into the competence of the various human beings. Now you talk about the problems that we have been dealt with. When I talk about SME development, enterprise development, we have in Ghana, and we have amongst the contestants a world-class competent individual whose forte is in enterprise development. Because we know the job Alan Chamantin did with Empretech. The impact of Empretech in Ghana. The fact that a lot of the big companies in Ghana right now were products of his Empretech program. Indeed, one of the NDC senior men, the former MP for Adenta, testified about what Empretech did for him himself. And Abu Swaga. You get it. The fact that because of the fantastic job he did with Empretech in 1994, when New York Times, was listing 100 leaders who could lead the world into the new millennium. When they mentioned Bill Gates, when they mentioned Condoleezza Rice, they also mentioned Alan John Kojo Chemantin. We know the work he did with Enterprise Africa. We know the role he played in AGWA. We know the role he played in promoting the textile sector in this country through that Friday Wear initiative. We also recognize his role he played in one of the biggest and most transformational policies in Africa. That's the African Continental Free Trade Area. His commitment to governance, to service, both at the international level and at the local level, is not in doubt. You understand? So if this man, with his record, his track record, with his courage, when I say courage here, we know the impression the political parties grant us, especially in the NPP, in this NPP dictatorship, as if you are not in the NPP, you are going to die. But where this man recognized himself having been a founder of the New Patriotic Party, and let me welcome my own senior man and brother and senior Honorable Fuzini to the show. Hopefully we can have a very good discussion. When he recognized that the NPP had deviated and departed from their core values, he had the courage to look in their eyes and tell them, no, this is not the party I have founded. No. And that I still believe in those values, but you've departed from those values. And so I'm leaving. I'm leaving your party. Take your party. Take your party, which right now is Abunsam now controlled. Take your party. Familiar Spirit Party. And so he had that courage. Because he recognized that the reason why we form political party is to serve the country. So if the party he's a part of has departed from that mandate and rather they are serving their parochial interests as against their country, there's no worth being there. It's not worth being there. He left, and we followed. You understand? Also, this man is saying that, listen, the partisanship is killing us. Because I've said on this show so many times. I'm not one, and when I was in NPP, I always heard that view. You know, in time past, there was this, the NPP used to speak as if everybody in the NDC was an idiot, and they didn't have, I've never believed in that thinking. You understand? Because you can't tell me that you have a group where all the wise people in the country are at, and you have another group where all the idiots are at. It's not possible. Because what differentiates us is simply ideas, not necessarily one group being more human beings or more important. Now, it is that thinking that's Michael Anchemante and that recognition that we are all talented. Maybe our talents may be different. And that the reason why we should not reach out to somebody to partake in building a nation, you understand, should not be because he belongs to a different political party. And so one of the pillars, one of the cornerstones of his agenda is to build a Ghana, a nation of national unity. It's one of the core mandates. So that when he is president, it shouldn't matter your political party center. It shouldn't matter the tribe you belong to. Those are all Ghanaians. All that he requires is your commitment and your competence. You understand? To build that one Ghana, because increasingly we are becoming a divided country. It's as if we have two Ghana. It's as if we have an NPP Ghana and an NDC Ghana. We don't have an Afro Ghana. Afro we are going to bring everybody together. Allah is going to bring everybody together. So if Honorable Hussein, with all the experience he has as a lawyer, because you are not a direct supporter of Alhaji, because you have a right to also believe in who you want to believe in. And then he becomes president, he thinks that, oh, Honorable Hussein here has so much experience, so much competence, which is proven. I need him in my government. He's a Ghanaian. You understand? That's the Ghana we need to build. We need to build a Ghana where we are serving our country. They're not serving our political parties. We need a radical paradigm shift from that thinking. You understand? That seems to suggest that you are there to serve your party. And that's the kind of leadership he's promising. We all argue about the size of government. He's not coming and saying, unless I'm going to reduce the size of government. He's actually giving you the numbers and he's giving you the positions he's going to fill. You get a picture. So for me, I know you want me to be a prophet, but I won't be a prophet today. I'm not a prophet. I don't come and deceive Ghanaians. I'm a Christian, but I'm not a prophet. We are going to take a decision. And that decision is a decision to decide who should we place the executive powers of state into whose hands. I'm going to employ Ghanaians that, based on the advice the Director President of State Policy gave us, based on his track record, based on the problems we are faced with, you understand? God and nature itself is giving us an opportunity, and we must grab that opportunity. And that opportunity is to place that executive power into the only candidate who is talking about forging that one Ghana, bringing all of us together. The candidate who is saying that your tribe really does not matter because we are Ghanaians. When we agree to forge one nation, your tribe really does not matter. The candidate who is saying that when it comes to participating in the governance, real democracy, because he's also spoken about real decentralization, the fact that we cannot have real decentralization if we do not have also fiscal decentralization, building that nation of national unity. He's also talked about reforms in our constitution. Reforms in our constitution. Our constitution needs massive and fundamental reforms. You understand? We know what can happen to us if just the executive is choosing everybody. Because Nanado was, once again, very responsible. He did not think about Ghana when he chose people who were perceived to be MPP people onto the EC. Okay. You understand? Now, I'll end very soon. I know you're about to give me I'll end very soon. So, we need to put that executive power into that person who will place Ghana first, who is going to push reforms, you understand, which will create a chamber, a non-partisan chamber, where some of these critical decisions will be made. Ghana is at the crossroad. We need a restoration of political credibility. You understand? We need a restoration of our economic credibility. We need to build and unite us, because we are increasingly becoming divided. We need to build a system which is based on merit. We need to build an enterprise economy. And I'm here and I'm telling the people of Ghana that let us start the process of rebuilding our country, of causing the restoration of Ghana as the black star of Africa. That process will begin when, in making that decision, we are not pushed by partisan considerations, when we are not pushed by tribal considerations, where what pushes us is our love for the country. And if that is the case, then that decision will be a decision for Honorable Alhaji Chamantin. Let us vote for him on 7th December 2024. Let us sign that social contract with him come 7th January 2025, and let him lead us together in building, one, that right political culture that will sustain our democracy, two, the right economic structure, you understand, that will cause us to fulfill our potential economically, the right social structures that will ensure that we all benefit from good governance, that right culture that places Ghana above all else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew Apia Dankwa. If you join us, we're discussing who wins election 2024. Now, I'll go to Beatrice Annan. Beatrice Annan is deputy spokesperson for the man who the polls favor, John Dramani Mahama. I'll go to her shortly. But before I do that, a few comments to read. And this one is from Abdul Rahim Mohammed from Akim of Wase, who says, Dr. Dankwa, Mr. Dankwa, don't you consider the polls that put His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the winner by saying that Alhaji Chamantin made the winner, so the surveys are not true for you? There is also Abdul Ghaffar Mohammed, who said number of parliamentary seats MPP and NDC likely to win come Saturday, December 7. These are my own analysis for MP's 2024 election. MPP is likely to win 111 to 122 seats in parliament, or less than that. NDC is likely to win 152 up to 163 seats in parliament, or more than that. For the presidential, 50% not decided. This is the Abdul Ghaffar Mohammed, who is doing his own analysis. Kojeri Sena, it's simple. The MPP government has destroyed the country. If we don't rescue this country, come December 7, we are doomed forever. There's Francis Gordon, who says, who wins the upcoming elections? There is no doubt that JDM is going to emerge a winner. The reason being that he's consistent with his vision for Ghana, and Ghanaians are going to vote for him massively. But for the butterflies, they'll have to try next time. Beatrice.
Yeah, good morning to our cherished listeners and viewers. As always, it's a pleasure to be on Alhaji and Alhaji, and I would wish that every Saturday I'm able to make it here, but it's not possible. Sometimes the backlash I receive from my people for not coming to Alhaji and Alhaji is just, but as always, it's a pleasure. I also want to say that in very recent times, and in fact from this week, I've been a bit active in the media. And what the MPP has been doing is churning a lot of fake news attributed to me. One on security, one on forming government, and so many other fake news, because certainly their campaign is sinking and they need to hold on to something. So I want to tell viewers and listeners that if you come across any such flyer on WhatsApp pages or on social media, Facebook, Twitter, now called S, and all that, please disregard it with all the contempt it deserves. I think that we are more focused on doing the right things. And even before I answer the question of who wins the 2024 election, I have to say that our campaign in 2024 is taking a lot of interesting dynamics. And so while we're on the field campaigning, you also see us back in Accra and back and forth, because we're engaging a lot of the international business communities and diplomatic communities. I think just 2 days ago, President Mahama held a meeting at the residence of the Ambassador of the United States with more than 25 people or ambassadors and high commissioners from across our diplomatic and international community. And it tells you one thing: the international community is responding to change. And you know how they plan. They don't wait for a declaration, because they know I'm told that EIU has not got their predictions wrong about Ghana's elections before. And the EIU is predicting, not just the EIU, the Fitch, Global Info Analytics and all that. So we are very focused and we will not be distracted by these fake news from people who practically have run our country down. But on a lighter note, I also want to say that I think if you are bringing my senior here, sometimes please don't add me. Because if he happened to speak before me, I wouldn't have had anything to say. So I'm happy I'm speaking before him so I can get something to say. And I maintain that he's taking a very good care of himself. He has a flat tummy, and the young people must learn that. I cannot but always stress that point. It's quite impressive. But back to the question of who wins the 2024 election. I want to make an invitation to our viewers and listeners that we must begin the discussion on the premise that the 2024 elections is not about the NDC, the MPP, and Alliance for Change, the CPP, and all the other political parties. This election is not just about one of those many elections we've had from 1992. This election is for the battle of the soul of our nation, and also to set a precedent for all political parties, including the NDC, to learn that when you are given power, you ought to use power for the good of the people in whose name and on whose behalf you exercise the powers of government. Because we have a certain warring situation in our country currently. And I personally find it difficult how I can discuss our situation without being emotional and without being angry, because it is getting scary. Admittedly, we've had the NDC and the MPP as the two dominant parties. And in every election, the expectation is that if the NDC doesn't win, the MPP and vice versa. And so we've had an MPP government. In fact, by 7 December, when they'll be ending their term, in the Fourth Republic, the MPP would have had the opportunity of ruling this country for 16 years, and the NDC will also have had the same opportunity. And so it is important that in making the comparison and in discussing the 2024 election, we look at where we have come from, where we are, and then we can tell where we are going and why the 2024 election cannot be business as usual. First of all, I remember vividly well as a teenager in the run-up to the 2008 elections what the political discussions were, because those were the times I was discovering my political consciousness. And so yesterday I said on the sister station, I would listen to Alhaji and Alhaji as if it were a ritual, or as if a doctor had prescribed for me that if you didn't take that Saturday dose, something would happen to you. And I would listen to other media outlets, and I saw the levels of the discussion, that the NDC had built a certain number of polyclinics, and President Kufuor had done something. And then we contend we have done better, and they say that they needed to do this. And so the discussion had always been about we doing something, but perhaps the approaches may be different. So like the NDC believe in the national health insurance. We piloted it. And President Kufuor said he believed in the mutual health insurance, where only a certain community would have to use the card. And so that was the level of the discussion. What we are having to deal with in 2024 is practically even the NDC's legacy, the MPP's previous legacy, and state capture by the current administration. President Kufuor gave his brother, what's his name, Ado Kufuor, minister. We never saw abuses. In fact, the language of family and friends never came into the political parlance because we did not anticipate that merely because a president had given the brother some position, they will use it to amass wealth. Yeah, we accuse President Kufuor of corruption. We accuse every president of corruption. But the levels of depreciation we are experiencing today, we've never experienced that. That a president will give the daughter positions. Take it from the boss scandal. The president's daughter was the one who bought the contaminated fuel. The name Moving Pina came from Edwina. Because that thing was decided as moving pig. So it's a combination of moving pig and Edwina, moving Pina. That $34 million will be doled out to the president's daughter's baby daddy under the guise of repairing ambulances, which never got repaired anyway. If they were even repaired, the discussion would have been different. Maybe someone would say, because I don't have that $10 million, I'm just jealous of her. But that was never done. You have never had the levels of corruption. See, the biggest corruption scandal to have hit our country is the PDS scandal. In that PDS scandal, Ghana lost over $500 million. In the long to medium term, we lost in excess of $2 billion. The government is saying that we should applaud them because they went to the IMF for $3 billion. With all the strings attached that don't even employ people. We had a golden opportunity. And because of how corrupt Dr. Bawumia is, he unilaterally changed what would have been a bank guarantee to an insurance guarantee, and we lost that money. As if that is not enough, they have moved into ECG, a company which was making profits in 2016. Today, ECG has practically is under siege. Dr. Bawumia, under the guise of digitalization, has made Haptel go there and taking our monies like the PDS people did, where they took in excess of over 2 billion cedis by way of electricity bills, and we don't know where that money is. We have never had that level of moral decadence and lack of corruption in our national discourse. We've had our challenges as a nation. Of course, we are a third world country. I remember when President Mills was in power and Ghana attained a lower middle income status and the excitement that greeted Ghana even within the sub-region. And so we agree that we have our struggles even as a developing country. But going into this election, in the area of infrastructure, if the NDC can show Dodowa Hospital, if the NDC can show the University of Ghana Medical Center, the Rich Hospital, the Bolgatanga Hospital, the Fomena, the Sewa, the Medina, the Numwa, by way of hospital, by way of water projects, by way of hospital, the MPP has zilch to show. Even at the time when we had COVID, and we had an excess of 21 billion cedis, we could not build a single 100-bed memorial hospital in honor of COVID, saying that let our predecessors know that there was a time in the history of this country that in memory of COVID-19 we built this hospital to honor the people who even lost their lives. We don't have. And so in this 2024 election, the discussion is the NDC's achievements, as I've stated, in the area of health, against zilch from the NPP. Zilch means zero. Secondly, take the area of cocoa. the NDC, before we exited power, almost had 1 million tons of cocoa production, with free fertilizer supporting farmers, with mass spraying supporting farmers, with even bonuses being paid to farmers, with all the international challenges with the way to cocoa prices. We had that. Ghana was the leading producer. Today, and Cocoa Board was making profits. Cocoa Board could practically go onto the international market for a syndicated loan, and banks will be harassing Cocoa Board to come for the loan because you were so guaranteed that when it came to cocoa production, the country Ghana has some of the finest cocoa, and so people will buy and you will get your money. How did we descend so low that from 2017, Cocoa Board started making losses? Their office expenditure that they spend on buying A4 sheet, tea, CEO's allowance and whatever is more than the revenues that accrue. Today, Cocoa Board is in debt. Our cocoa production is under 500,000 tons. How did we get here? And somebody is asking who wins 2024 elections? In the area of, there were soft things that we used to pride ourselves. When I was young, I used to do a lot of debates and speech writing and things. And quickly, if you were debating, there were some phrases that, even if you forgot anything, you will use. That Ghana was a beacon of democracy. That Ghana was a gateway to Africa. And some way, somehow, we found ourselves, we gave ourselves some of these nice accolades and all that, the international communities, and those phrases were very amusing to me. Today, we cannot no longer say that Ghana is a beacon of democracy because of the human right violation. Check even the press freedom. Check the index. We have descended so low that journalists have had to be killed because they express their opinion. Yesterday, I was sitting somewhere and I bumped into Oliver Bakavamawo, and I was laughing at him. And I said, these guys have made you popular because in 2014, 2015, I didn't know him personally, but I knew him by reason of his notes he left behind in law school for everybody as his legacy. And so we will read those notes at last minute. If you are not able to learn, he had summarized. So just look at the case law, he had summarized everything. He used to bash the NDC government, even from UK. Joy FM will give him the medium. Go and check Oliver's tweet from 2014. As I can recall, perhaps it may have started before that. He will bash government. Yesterday, I was even telling him some of those expressions, and he was laughing. He bashed President Mahama and the NDC government, and he disagreed with us, and he called us names. You know why nobody got to know Oliver? Because we understood that dissenting opinions are part of the tenets of democracy. And he, Nanado, with all his locally acquired foreign accent and all those, and the Ghanaian people, and in the struggle for Ghana's independence, the Grand tradition, and all those things were because somebody accommodated his dissenting opinion. Today, you cannot even express a dissenting opinion under this government. People will call you security officers, commanders, whatever, military. They are telling you, they are giving you information because they cannot even ask for what is rightfully theirs, such as conditions of service. People have been gagged, and you want to sacrifice all these challenges in 2024 election and even ask who will win the election. Don't you feel suffocated? A government that organizes vigil for George Floyd they have never met. Some of them have never never gone to Minnesota, Minneapolis to know how the place looks like. That government organized a vigil, and yet Kaka was killed because he wanted better for his country, and nothing came out of it. Ayawaso West Wogon, Techiman, people were killed. The government that is quick to tweet about international death, but leads its own people, and we are asking who will win 2024 election. We are sitting on a time bomb. And you see, we may have had our challenges. Our economy has not been, the best, even in time past. The NDC acknowledges that there was so much work to do. I remember when we had those, the turrets bearing of FPSO destroying, and we couldn't produce our oil, and the foreign currencies were not coming through, and international oil prices had dropped substantially. You could see the urgency to resolve the situation, and it gave birth to the Century Consensus, and you could see cabinet ministers, I'm sure honorable Dems at the time were so hot, and you could see that governance was a serious discussion. Even when we had been so, you could see the updates about the negotiation on acquiring power purchase, and that was my idea about governance, that you will face challenges and you will rise up to the occasion and solve. The moment you solve the first challenge, there are so many other challenges waiting for you, and you will keep solving, and the challenges will never end, because even in America they are solving their challenges, but you keep solving. You have a government that is telling you, Dr. Baumia is telling you that if I solve all your problems today, what will I do tomorrow? So for today, he's sleeping. And you see, it's the poverty of logic that these guys are inviting us to debate in the 2024 elections. That a man who is part of the government, the poverty of reason is that I was so instrumental that anytime I went to Nanado that I wanted to develop an app, he allowed me to develop the app under the guise of digitalization. That anytime I wanted to do something online, he allowed me. But the role I was given as the head of the economic management team, I was not allowed. Meanwhile, Nanado, for all his State of the Nation's address, check from 2017 through to 2023, who said that he wants to applaud Dr. Baumia for his stellar leadership in stabilizing the economy. And whereas Baumia is saying, I'm not responsible for the economy, I possibly cannot even be responsible. I'm not the president. The president says, oh, I'm applauding you, Baumia, by force. That is the poverty of, and you see, this government is gaslighting us. Gaslighting just means that although we know that this thing is wrong, it's illogical, it is unacceptable, let's keep repeating it. Just maybe it will become the norm, and it's becoming the norm. And before I conclude, there is a strategy and the MPP is using. And I want to call on all Ghanaians to listen to me carefully so that we can salvage our democracy, our rights, and our very future. Otherwise, it will be more disastrous than Zimbabwe. What is the MPP strategy? The MPP has taken a position that when you come to power, don't build hospitals. In fact, just award contracts and spread the hospitals across. Don't finish it. Just pay money. For every need the people are, just attempt solving it. So you look at Pualugu Dam. They never intended to construct the dam because I think the dam was going to cost more than $1 billion. And they paid $12 million to someone to move there as if they were going to. That is not even 10% of the amount. So they knew ab initio that they were not going to construct the dam. Look at the motorway. They said we want to do a 6-lane. They've given people cutlasses to start weeding the motorway. under the guise, and they've paid in excess of over $11 million. Agenda 111. They did not intend to finish. They just spread it so that there will be a discussion that, oh, we are doing. And then when they go to Parliament, they present a different report. But what I'm saying is that the NPP has recognized that the Ghanaian voter, or they think that the Ghanaian voter is interested in money and goodies before they vote. And so the monies they will use to construct the schools in your community, they have hoarded it. The money they would have used to construct Ridge Hospital Phase 2, they have hoarded it. The money they would have used to bring water, the electrification, rural electrification that the NDC was aggressively pursuing, they've halted all these projects. From second week in November, which will be about 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, they will come to your communities with different governmental names: empowerment and livelihood support, support for small and young scale businesses, and all the names. And what they will do is that they will come and share for you 500,000. They will bring your favorite artist during their rallies to excite you, the young people, to forget about your future because you are listening to Kim Paluta, Batman, Samini, and all the artists that they have lined up and they can afford at the expense of your future. So when you get to the grounds or in the communities, you will hear these songs and you will be excited. On top of it, you'll be giving 500, 200,000. The market woman, the trotro driver, they will give you fuel coupon. They will give the farmers Wellington boots and fertilizers. They will look for that which is your immediate need and give you in the run-up to the election, so that you reduce the entire elections to who gave you what. I want to urge Ghanaians, please, these are bought with your money. Take it. Take whatever they give you. Take them. Accept them. But please, you have a duty, for the sake of you and I, for our future, for the sake of our young democracy, for the sake of all the machinery. Look at how these guys have acquired wealth. I'm sure that Honorable has been in power before. You never saw a minister stash so much money under her bed that even $1 million is stolen. She had no idea that $1 million of the money had been stolen. The money she stashed is not 1 million. So you can imagine Cecilia Dapa coming to your community and saying that I'm giving you money to go and vote. Can you ever exhaust the money under her bed? And so you have a duty to take these monies, but vote against these guys with all the anger and courage you can muster in you, so that every political party, including the NDC, the CPP, the Alliance for Change, and everybody will know that when you are given political power and there is time for accountability, I don't think any government can steal more than the NPP government has stolen ever in the history. And so you have a duty to show them that even when they come and share the money, you will take it and vote on the basis of your conscience. That way, all of us will sit up in the boardrooms, in the cabinet, everywhere. Everybody will be discussing what can we do for the Ghanaian people. And finally, to the young people, I'm a young person. I'm just 34 years like many people. Actually, people think I'm very old. I enjoy it. But I'm a very young person with so much future ahead of me. I know what it feels like when you wake up and you don't have a job. Or even for those who have jobs, how you have to do calculation and recalculation. I know how it feels like for many mothers who have children and they do not have support. And the general economic condition has a rippling effect. So if you have a government that borrows their way and they don't care and nothing matters to them, and today you are having to buy, yesterday I was buying hot oven. I just took 50 cedis and I said, give me 3 loaves. The woman came back and said, please, it's no longer 15 cedis, it's 18 cedis. How did we move from buying the same bread at 3 cedis to 18 cedis? And how, if you have 3 or 2 kids, how many you give? It is so overwhelming that we have a duty to show the NPP that Ghanaians are not fools. That Ghanaians are not tribalistic. That merely because they think that Ashanti region will vote in a certain way and they will get a certain number, and Eastern region will vote in a certain way and they will get a certain number. So let's just combine these numbers. Let's share money in the other small regions and we are good to go. They may be good to go, but I keep saying, when the economy is worse, we will all suffer, but some will suffer more than others. And so you owe it a duty to Ghana, not just to yourself, not just to your tribe, not just because a certain family member says that you were born into a certain tradition, but because we need to rescue our country. We need to come together to build the Ghana we all want. And certainly at this time, we can only but give the country to someone who has the experience. Because how else are you going to manage this thing if you've never held a cabinet meeting and you've never dealt with international community and you don't have that requisite? I'm sure whoever comes out near himself will use about 2 years to learn about how to do some of these things. And so we owe it a duty, for the love of our country, not just about the NDC. This election is not about the NDC. Even if the NDC loses, God forbid, and the NDC will not lose, the NDC will survive. The NDC is a political party that has gone through some turbulence, and when everybody thought the NDC cannot come back, they came back even stronger. But this election is about your future. It's about our country. And so if you ask me who wins the 2024 election, we all know that the way the party is structured, the country is structured, is a 2-party state. I know some of you may have been disgruntled with and you are tired of the NDC MPP politics, but the NDC is the only political party that has the structure, that has the requisite human resource to form a government and to make your lives better. Not just that, you have seen the NDC's track record, you are experiencing the NPP, and you know that amongst these 2 parties, the NDC is light years ahead. The NDC is nationalistic. The NDC is made up of people who do not think that the party is owned by their uncle. I'm a typical example. All I did was to come on air, and President Mahama does not know my mother, has never met my father, does not even know where they stay. She says, come and speak for me. It can only happen in the NDC. So we do not give positions on the basis of tribe and alliance. These guys have, it's like an inheritance. That is why it was not Alan Sherman's time and he has to leave. Even though by their structure, they said it was his time. So you have a duty to reject the MPP. Reject the MPP with everything you can so that we can raise the level of the public discourse, because it is too low now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lawyer Bitrisana is the deputy spokesperson for the John Mahama campaign. If you just joined us, a matter of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, we are discussing, like she kept saying, who wins election 2024. I don't know how my topic offended her. Anyway, well, always nice to have you on the show. Well, I'll come to my immediate right. He assumed position. A few months, he has to go into an election. He has to organize a party into an election. And if you've been watching the PNC over the past few years, it's been from one disaster to another. They have left him a party that is in chaos, that he needs to fix. He's become the administrator of the People's National Convention, Ishak Awudu. Well, so what I'll do is I'll start with Ishak. I would like to listen to Ishak. I'll come back and read some of your comments.
Thank you, Sena. Let me say a very good morning to my co-panelists across this panel, and to say the same good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners. In fact, it's rather unfortunate, like you indicated, that as the General Secretary of a party, I am here to discuss this particular topic of who wins the 2024 elections at a time that my presidential candidate, whom we all had a lot of hope in, has been disqualified by the Electoral Commission, and we are still engaged in that legal tussle. So it's quite difficult because I don't know what will become of that particular case in court, whether we would back on the ballot. If that were to be the case, I can assure you that on behalf of the PNC, I have utmost confidence that Bernard Mona has what it takes to be Ghana's next president by his track record of political activism and all of that. Be it as it may, I still have, as it were, to deal with what is available, because as for the politics we do, it cannot always be about self. It's about the alternatives available and what the future holds. And for me, I think that there are a number of things that the average Ghanaian voter considers in making a choice whenever elections come. And I would focus on, as it were, doing a discussion of some of those factors, and then we'll do and allow for your viewers and your listeners to make the judgment and take the informed decisions. Now, we are aware that since the return of multi-party democracy in 1992, political power in Ghana has always swung between the NPP and the NDC. Like Beatrice said, by 2024, the NPP would have had 16 years of the 32 years of the Fourth Republic, meaning that the NDC had already had their 16 years. And so clearly, a lot of the polls that we wake up to are focused on the NDC and the NPP. For me, I think that as we sit here, what we go through individually and collectively as a people, as citizens of Ghana, would determine the kind of choice we would make. Now, we are aware that the management of the economy of Ghana has been put in the hands of the NPP since 2017, under the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo, ably supported by Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who has become the flag bearer of that party, and he's all over the place campaigning to be elected as the next president. And as for the economy, they say that the economy begins with how you feel about yourself, whether you are able to meet your everyday basic needs as a person and that of your family. And so if you were to judge the NPP's performance from 2017 up to today, you get to understand that a lot of the things that they complained about in opposition and said that they were coming to fix, a lot of the things that they saw not right under the leadership of previous governments are worse off under their tenure. Now, you are aware that this government, as it were, has come to introduce a lot of taxes, inexplicable taxes, and the rate of taxation itself is a problem. Not only have they introduced the taxes, they have come to also increase the rate of burden of these taxes on the good people of Ghana. And you know that we had to go on the streets to fight when the party and the government decided that they were coming to introduce an electronic levy tax. Despite all that we did, they managed to push it down our throats. And we are all, as it were, suffering the consequences of that tax. Now, sadly enough, the reasons for which they thought that it was appropriate to bring in that particular tax has not been realized. So you ask yourself, so what went into the thinking of the government and the cabinet headed by Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia to come to tell us that we needed an electronic levy tax at the time? Bawumia was head of that EMT, despite the fact that today he's trying to distance himself from most of the economic decisions that were taken at the time. But I keep saying that if you take credit for the rain, you must accept blame for the drought. Because you cannot come and tell us that everything good about this government is at your behest. But when we point out the failings of this particular government, you come to say that you were not in charge. That cannot be right. And for me, the level of economic mismanagement we have seen, where the government has been unable to deal with most of the economic indices that ought to be positioned properly to ensure that the good people of Ghana get a certain modicum of respectable life, is one reason for which I am not sure that the NPP deserves another chance. And instead of them going about preaching breaking the 8, I think that the good people of Ghana should be looking at stopping the 8. And Senator, you are aware that in opposition, this was a government that made a number of promises, a plethora of promises. Today, when we look back, we can only play back those promises, but as to whether they have been able to keep those promises in the social contract that they have with the good people of Ghana is a fiasco. This government in opposition, they promised that once they come into power, they would ensure that every village has a dam. When we told them that it was practically impossible to construct a dam in every village, they said that we were naysayers. We did not have vision. We were only engaged in partisan politics. Today, even the dams that they reduce to construct on a district basis, they have not been able to do it. There are a lot of uncompleted dam projects started, like Beatrice said, because they needed to do something to represent something. They have not been able to do it. And you recollect that when the then Minister for Special Initiatives, Madam Hawa Kunsum, was pushed, what did she say? She said that the amount of money allocated for these dams was not adequate enough to construct a meaningful dam. So they were constructing meaningless dams. You understand? And this is a government that promised in opposition that they were not coming to practice a family and friends government. Today we have lost count of the number of family and friends in Nana Akufo-Addo's government. If we were to be given the whole of this show to sit down and take stock of Akufo-Addo's family and friends who are in his government, then we cannot even, as it were, finish counting all of those people. The most bizarre aspect of it is not that we are just concerned about having family and friends in his government, but the conduct of the family and friends. What they have been able to do to this country of ours, using their positions as family members of Akufo-Addo, as friends of Akufo-Addo, to completely rip this particular country apart. That is the kind of government we are talking about, seeking re-election. You understand? This is a government in opposition who promised to come and fight corruption. Akufo-Addo's government is the most corrupt government that I have ever seen since I started my political activism in 2004. Because I started as a constituency executive for the PNC in 2004. You understand? I have never seen. I remember we went on demonstrations against President Kufuor. I saw demonstrations under President Atta Mills. I saw demonstrations under former President Mahama. But I have never seen these levels of unprecedented acts of corruption. At a point, this government was labeled one day, one corruption scandal. And just like that of the family and friends, we will be unable to catalog all of those corruption scandals that have rocked this country since Akufo-Addo became president. You understand? And in tying that, Akufo-Addo said he was coming to protect the public purse. Akufo-Addo's posture and that of his government, his leadership, is not suggestive of somebody who is prepared to protect the public purse. Because at a time that the good people of Ghana, at the time that institutions, at the time that people at the peril of their lives conduct investigations into misconduct, acts of corruption by public officials, Akufo-Addo would come and say that his government has seen nothing wrong with what those people are believed to have done. And he rightfully earned the name a clearing agent, because Akufo-Addo was not prepared whatsoever to protect the public purse. He was only engaged in a charade. And Senna, I have seen a certain attempt by the New Patriotic Party under Nana Akufo-Addo to say that they were engaged in social interventions. They tell us that the biggest social intervention in the history of this country is that of the Free Senior High School. But we have not lost sight of the many problems that bedevil the Free Senior High School. And the fact that the Free Senior High School, unfortunately, has become a cash cow for the NPP, its officials, and its apparatchiks. That today, the procurement processes towards the acquisition of consumables, the acquisition of foodstuff, and all of that, in promoting Free Senior High School, is an opportunity for the government and its apparatchiks and its officials and all of that to profiteer from that so-called social intervention. I call it so-called because they are only pretending to be attaching a certain level of seriousness to it. But their interest is much more in what they would get out of it. That is the reason for which the government claims to be spending on Free Senior High School, and yet every now and then we hear of food shortages in secondary schools. We hear of a lack of accommodation in secondary schools. We hear of a lack of classrooms, a lack of laboratories, and all of that. After 7 to 8 years of the implementation of this flagship of the New Patriotic Party under Akufo-Addo. But they are telling us that, because I have seen adverts of the NPP asking people to vote for Dr. Bawumia for the continuation of Free Senior High School. Any other government that comes would abolish the Free Senior High School. At a time that we know as discerning citizens that they are not, as it were, investing as much as they ought to be doing, if their main priority was to see the success of the Free Senior High School. In similar fashion, Senna, this is a government that is blaming a lot of its woes on what happened when COVID struck. But we have seen an audit of the COVID funds that reveals that the government spent less than what they got if all of the grants and the loans and every other thing was put together, including the taxes that they had to heap on the good people of Ghana in an attempt to raise funds to fight COVID. COVID rather became a cash cow for the government. We saw the kind of procurement infractions in the name of arresting the COVID situation at the time. You understand? But today, whenever the economic mismanagement under Akufo-Addo is being talked about, the excuse is Russia, Ukraine, or the advent of COVID. That cannot be. We are all witnesses to a certain level of unprecedented economic mismanagement under Akufo-Addo. And the reason for which all they can do is to find reasons. And those reasons are grounded on COVID, Ukraine, and then on COVID. But that particular pandemic itself turned out to be an opportunity for you and your cronies and your allies to amass wealth, because a lot of questionable contracts that were given are still out there that people cannot speak to. We still cannot find answers. And I know that anybody listening to us, anybody watching us, understands what happened during COVID. That contracts for the procurement of Sputnik V vaccines, it had to be a subject of investigation by Parliament. What became of that investigation in Parliament? It is still hanging on the neck of the then Minister for Health, Kweku Agyeman-Manu. And that the COVID testing at Kotoka International Airport still remains unresolved, despite the spirited attempts by concerned citizens to find out who was in charge. We still cannot find answers to all of these things. And so for me, I find it rather weird that this is the same government that is pushing forcefully and, as it were, employing all manner of tactics and strategies to deceive the average Ghanaian to get our mandate again. If we were to sit here and to do a catalogue of all of the unfulfilled promises of Akufo-Addo and the NPP, ably supported by their now presidential candidate, I'm sure that a lot of people will marvel. And so, as for who wins the 2024 elections, the NPP is no option. And like I indicated from the outset, if at the end of the day, PMC and Bernard Mona are able to convince the Supreme Court to review the judgment by the High Court in our favor, I am sure that there would be an alternative come December 7th, 2024.
Thank you. Thank you, Ishak. Let me do a few of your comments you're sending to us. First, okay, let me start with our WhatsApp and text message platform. The number is really displayed on the screen that you can use to send us a text message or send us a WhatsApp message. This is Alhaji Hamza in Pickfarm, who says, good morning. It is clear that the NDC is winning the 2024 election with in a grand style. Let us not forget that the election 2024 is going to be based on the track record of the NDC, MPP, and other political parties. We need someone with experience who has been there before and not try me and see person. Corruption, hardships, the economy is going to play a big role in the elections. The election is also going to be on trustworthiness, credibility, and honesty, which I am afraid Dr. Bawumia lacks. Thank you, Alhaji Hamza, for sending that message. Arnold in Ho sends this, says, Ghana's political climate is reminiscent of a heated football match, with everyone kicking around their opinions. It's amusing to see discussions about the 2024 elections dominate conversations. I suggest we shift focus to comparing the achievements of each party, ensuring Ghanaians make informed decisions at the polls. By doing so, we'll contribute to a more constructive dialogue. That's from Arnold, who sent that in Ho. Then this one comes from Sneh, who says, Senna, I don't know if matters of the PNC is part of your table discussion, but for the PNC representative among you, please ask this question for me, because the submission sounds like a real PNC. And you can see Chairman Mona and a poster of some fathers in him. What is the state of the elders in the PNC? I know some key figures have passed away, but the Edward Mahamas and others are there. They may have their exceptions, but what has been their response at the party concerning what the EC has done to their dear Beth Nkrumah East unit? That's from Senate. No, send that comment. I guess it's taking note. There's okay, this one is, please ask the NPP people for me that if it happens that they are in opposition now, will they have informed their followers to vote for the current government to continue with this hardship? Common sense. Nyaminipa Kobna Amo sent that one, and thank you for that comment. Some more comments from you. Okay, thank you for sending that. There's this one says, good morning. Madam Annan has hit the nail right on the head. The sharing of money by the NPP is on the rise. They are buying the people's future for 500 Ghana cedi for the next 4 years. Oh, how I wish the people should go for the Ghana money that is given to them, but vote against them. There's this one also coming in from Ajiko Richard, who says, good morning. Concerning who wins this year's election, only God knows, but it is written all over the walls, both spiritual and physical walls, that Ghana needs a nation builder. And when God has built this nation through this man, we should be careful not to give it back to the destroyers. God has brought good news to Ghanaians. I think I send that from Adafienu. And then thank you for your comment. This one says, good morning, Senator Council Apia Dankwa. I should forget Alhaji Manting. For if he had not taken part in the presidential race of the MPP, we would have known him to be a patriotic citizen of Ghana. He has already taken part in the race. He should have resigned before the MPP's primary race. Francis Onosino, who said that everybody has their own timing of when Alhaji Manting should have left the party or not. Then this one says, this Beatrice Annan woman is so solid, so intelligent, and so brave. I like the woman. Listen to her submission this morning. Solid for that matter. As for this government power, Ghanaians should vote them out. They are so wicked and their TV is unprecedented. Be kudos to you. God bless you so much. Please stop calling the line. If you call the line, it makes it difficult for me to read your message. If you are trying to draw attention to you, I can, based on the number you are using to call me, tell where your message is. I'm going through as many as I can. Allow me to. It will ultimately get to you if I have enough time. This one is from Osman, not Daboya, who says, good morning. The spokesperson of the JDM, she is speaking because of power. Ghanaians don't believe you guys anymore. Then he concludes by saying it is possible. Gabi sent this from Spinters. Gabi says, Beatrice Annan is a gem. She's very articulate and vocal. I've liked her the very first day I listened to her. She has been a thorn in the flesh of the MPP. The egos, impunity, disregard, and mismanagement of the MPP must stop. Gabi sent that from Spinters Road. This one says, today, by the submissions of lawyer Dankwa and Beatrice, I can now understand that it's the lack and absence of commitment that has caused the failure of the one district, one factory industrialization policy and the failure of Galamsey fight. Money goes where your heart is, where you care is, where you are passionate about. There's a huge difference between mere talk show and genuine commitment. Posh sent that from Achali Boshe, but goes ahead to say, Alan should have left earlier than he did. Careful analysis are indicative of the fact that the Afro-Franco and Umbrella appear to be on the same wavelength as far as many of the policies are concerned. Paul sent that from Ashali Boshe. Like I said, everybody has their views on when Alan should have left the MPP or not. Let's conclude with Alhaji Nusaf Husseini. Alhaji, I thought Alhaji had some of the money that was being shared in the name of the drought that happened in the northern region. So $500 million. I thought he had some of the dollars, but I called Alhaji. Alhaji said he does not have the money. Alhaji, good morning to you. It's nice to see you.
Sena, good morning. And Pierre Donko, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, quite some time. Yeah. You people should be regrouping to pass a resolution to join us to remove this equipment. It was very illuminating, very interesting and exciting to listen to Beatrice. I mean, I have said on this your platform that anytime you're bringing her, don't bring me. Don't bring me. I mean, she's a lady that I have great confidence in. I mean, that she can represent the party, speaking alone in the den of the wolves. And so, next time you're bringing her, don't bring me. Now then, 5 years ago, I wrote about John Dramani Mahama. And this is what I said. I hold this truth as self-evident that John Dramani Mahama is a redeemer sent to rescue us from the catastrophic and disastrous government of the MPP. 5 years ago, that is before election 2020, this was my view. And nothing has happened within these intervening years to change this view. In fact, I have been vindicated to a very large extent. 5 years ago, before the 2020 elections, I had already passed judgment on this MPP government. Look, you used to support them. And I just felt so uncomfortable listening to reasonable people speak in support of the MPP. Right from the beginning. The government say that if you look at the testicles of a small child, you will know whether it will develop into hernia. Right from the beginning. the signs were very clear. Akufo-Addo is a deeply partisan president. You don't see it. Deeply partisan. He has nothing. His personal interests, or I mean, his national interest, what he perceives as national interest, must be coterminous with the interests of the MPP. That is the president that we have. That the president can use national platforms to castigate his opponents. It has never happened not even Nkrumah. Nkrumah even did not do that. But under this our president, then they say who wins this election. I mean, no one is looking for a third term for Akufo-Addo. Is anyone looking for it? The reason why Alhaji and left the MPP should inform all MPP supporters that President Nana Akufo-Addo, in championing the election campaign of Bawumia, was seeking to ensure a third term for himself. And who has ever made a very disastrous, catastrophic leader continue in the office? In fact, this post I wrote manifested itself in the 2020 elections. I believe in the heart of hearts, in my heart of hearts, that MPP did not win 2020 elections. In my heart, no one can take it away from me. I said it before on this platform. I was invited by the police. But that is my belief. And I've been vindicated in that belief. Go back and take the election results of 2020. Look constituency by constituencies, and you see the irregularities that I'm talking about. In fact, in some instances, they just simply harvested the votes. They just simply harvest. You know what it means by harvesting votes? That you look at the register, that those who have voted have been accounted for, but there's still a backlog on the register. They found ways of people printing in the ballot box. Into the ballot box. That's what they did. So we are quite awake. But Senna, Beatrice, you were in the law school, the law faculty. You were there. Tell me, when has it ever been the norm to promote a failure? So Ishak is very right. Look at all the indicators. The description of John Dramani Mahama as incompetent was premise on what he achieved or what he was doing. Not so. Tell me, have they been able to reach that mark? Have they been able to reach that mark? Take our growth, take inflation, take the depreciation of the cedi, take food inflation, and to top it all, like Beatrice has said, they have now engaged in state capture, that they can even compare the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Addison, to do what? To violate with impunity the laws of this country. Everybody knew that when they put it in the law that you can't print more than 5% of the previous year's revenue, they knew of the disastrous consequences of printing more than that. So they enshrined it in law. Now you find people trying to defend that. Trying to defend that. So, to be honest with you, there's no argument that if the people of Ghana retain these people in office, then we'll be a laughing stock of the world. When has it ever been the case that pensioners who labored for this country and decided that for the remaining years of their lives, they will invest their monies in government bonds, suffered a haircut? Do you know the number of people who have died by that? Do you know how many people have been left destitute by that? Tell me, how does it make sense that struggling banks in this country admitted that they were struggling, and that the audit report showed that if government gave them quantitative easing, that is support, of 9 billion Ghana cedis, they will be able to keep the jobs and the banks. That was what the audit report revealed. 9 billion. If this is not wickedness, tell me what that is. That you will use 3 times that money. 3 times that money to collapse them. Tell me, what does it make sense? Is it governance? This is Pilolo government. You know Pilolo? This is Pilolo government. Catch me if you can. That's that kind of government. Beatrice mentioned our PDS. PDS is a scourge on our conscience. 2 days ago, I was reading the finance minister said the 250 million we're getting from the World Bank to do energy sector with recalibration is the first time. I said, have you forgotten of PDS and Millennium Challenge account? Have you forgotten? Is that the first time? You botched the exercise. When we say, well, you see, NDC is unlike MPP. When they gave us the conditions under which we could access money from the Millennium Challenge account, they said what we lacked as a country was expertise in the power distribution sector, and that we should ensure that the leading consortium, the leading company in the consortium is a foreigner with expertise. We allowed the process, transparent processes. We knew they were Ghanaian companies, but we were looking for the betterment of the ECG for the total people of Ghana. When they came, what did they say? They said we're going to give ECG to foreigners. No, so that was our accusation. And then formed a company, including a barbers being on that company. Now here one of the barbers is their barber. And then they went for PDS. Look, apart from the fact that we never, because of their activity, we never accessed the money from the World Bank, the Millennium Challenge account. The monies that they collected in the intervening period has never been accounted for. Has never been accounted for. If we talk about the Auditor General's report on the utilization of COVID fund, the days of our Legon in the law faculty would have said the best description of the Auditor General's report is, quotes, how not to use public funds prudently. If you want to title the Auditor General's report, how not to use public funds prudently. Read it. It will show you how not to use public funds well. Everything they did as they wanted. And this is the government that thinks that now they can go to the people with Maggie Kips. I'm from the campaign field, and Beatrice is right, we're right. Our campaign is multifaceted. We realize that we are confronting an existential evil, a criminal enterprise. That if we don't attack, if we are going to kill an elephant, traditionally, you have to take positions, various positions. If the first one fires, the second one fires, the third one fires, the fourth one fires. One hunter alone firing an elephant cannot kill an elephant. You can't. You have to take positions. So we have taken positions. So you see us on the ground, you see us here, you see us engaging. Because sometimes, because of the way MPP has ruled this country, people have become, very disinterested in the governance of this country. Because they have now created an impression that people believe that all governments will be the same. So apathy might be a problem. And turnout in the elections might be a problem. That is why I'm inviting Alan and inviting PNC, Muna, and all political parties that this is not the time to pursue a venture that will not yield reasonable results. All of us need to think of resetting Ghana. Alan needs to think, that was my friend, everyone else in the parliament, and he was trade minister under Kofo. I was a member of the trade committee, and I know what he's made of. Sometimes when you talk about him, I laugh in my head. He made it. I told him. It's not that I'm saying it for communications. I mean, where I feel stronger or something, I say it. Yeah. I told him at the National Theatre. One day I met him there. I said, what time is he wasting in MPP? If you want to pursue a presidential ambition. What time are you? Because these people, they are persons are big time. If you have an ambition, you will tapped. He said, sir, I know that best time to take a decision. But you see, now he's struggling. Back to Ireland. So many years ago, at the University of Ghana, the MPP constitution has said that if you want to be their flag bearer, you must get 50 plus. In Akufo-Addo got 49%. 47%. Ireland took a magnanimous decision in the interest of their party, the unity of their party, to concede the leadership to him. Then Akufo-Addo made a pronouncement. And it came out of his mouth and left through his occiput that he will be his successor. Not so. Yeah. He's simply forgotten. So Allah, you have known. But about plea to them. And all the 12 or who are contesting the elections, including the independents, this is not the time to cause confusion. If some of them are sponsored by MPP, they must know that it's their destiny and their children's destiny that they are willing to trade off. Today, as I speak to you, less than 2,000 people are doing chemotherapy nationally at the Kulebo Theatre. Less than 2,000 because of renal failure, not so. Over the last few weeks, organized labor and the universities, academia, have been talking about the pollution of our water bodies and the degradation of our forests and calling on Nana Akufo-Addo to act. They are looking to save the environment also. But it's a more existential threat. The hard metals, the mercury and others, are seeping into the economy and the groundwater, into living organisms in the water, and we are consuming them. Where they come across oranges on an orchard, they contaminate the oranges. In fact, the European Union has already warned that we risk losing the European market because our cocoa is failing to pass the sanitary and phytosanitary conditions. Now, Akufo-Addo, what has he done? He's calling on other political leaders to join him in signing a pact to fight KLFC. That is what a president does. A president who swears, Beatrice, you know the oath of office. You know the oath of office to uphold the laws of this country. That is your oath. The constitution and the laws of this country. And that if you fail to do that, you suffer the consequences for it. That is what you swear in holding the distance. It's not for fanfare. The Act 703 as amended is part of the laws of this country. Executive authority under Article 58 is vested in you. And now you are calling other presidents to join you to sign back to fight. I say, if this is not dereliction of duty, tell me what that is. This is dereliction of duty. Enforce the laws. You say, no. Come and help me to sign a pact. I said, this election is about removing the jokers and putting in serious people. Have you seen Nepo dancing on the platform? Or Baumia dancing the Konkoma dance? I see he was sleeping on one leg. Yeah. We have to remove this bunch of jokers and bring in serious people. You see, and the serious person is defined by ICE. You know ICE? ICE. Okay. Integrity, credibility, and experience. We tried the first invitation. We accepted the first invitation of Nana Akufo-Addo when he told all of us to do what? To try him. This is the outcome of that trial. That was someone here. And that was not what he said. Someone here. We did that. Ghana. We tried him. And we are where we are today. Today, if we are going to 2024 elections, it's not about trying somebody. It's about looking at a person who has credibility. Looking for somebody who has integrity. And looking for experience. Because we need to move out of the doldrums as quickly as possible and restore hope in the people of this country. We need to assure the future leaders of this country that this level of impunity will never be countenanced in our history. We need to tell the people of this country that governance is not by thoughts. Do one thing, stop, do another, stop, do one. No. That every leader must have a comprehensive and holistic picture of the Ghana we want. And not by thoughts. That you can go to Achim and develop it and build their palaces and whatever and say that you are developing Ghana. No, that's not what we want. We want a leader who will give everybody an opportunity as promised in the Constitution, equality of opportunity and prosperity. That's what we want. So it's clear. Let me conclude by just telling you what my people tell me in Tabale, in Dabo. It says that if you see somebody and they say he is a medicine man, a magician, that person is an observer. And it's consistent with earlier scientists who observed the occurrence of natural events and were able to reduce their observations into scientific laws and principles. So the whole world is regulated by certain principles that can only be discerned if you engage in critical observation on how things work. How does our democracy work? We started a democracy in 1992, not so. After Rawlins had transitioned from a military ruler to a civilian ruler, not so. How many years did he do? 8 years. No matter what efforts he was putting in place, Ghanaian said, well, the Hausa's man will say, Lada Isa. It's okay. It's okay. Can you take a back seat and let's try a different government and see? Kufuor, he came on, handed over to Kufuor. He was a bitter enemy of, opponent of Rawlins. But when the time came for the baton of state to be passed, former President Rawlins passed the baton to Kufuor. Kufuor did 8 years. 8 years. I was a member of the European Union, African, Caribbean, and Pacific Joint Parliamentary Assembly. We used to meet in Brussels. When Kufuor lost the elections in 2024, MPP lost the elections in 2024. 2008. 2008.
Yes.
Senegalese, no, Senegalese, Sierra Leonean member of parliament asked me, but how could MPP have lost this election? Because Kufuor appeared to be doing everything right. That's why when I met him recently at the hotel around airport, I told him to his face, President Kufuor, that even though I did not agree with him when he was president, but taking everything together, he knew what he was about. This our president doesn't know what he's about. I told Kufuor in his face. He knew what he was about. But he did 8 years. 8 years. And handed over to Professor Mills. Professor Mills did 4 years. Or a little below 4 years. And departed the earth. And Dramani Mahama continued. Finished the term of Professor Mills and had his term of 4 years. So in all, and this had how many years? 8 years. Then they handed over to Nana Akufo-Addo. Today is his 8th year. It appears to me from observation that this our cycle goes 8 years in circles. So next year there will be a change in government. What is not helping the MPP and their campaign? And it appears that they have no campaign message. Because we don't know what to say. Is it nurses' allowances here you are going to promise them? Or teachers' allowances? So you see that they're now promising the reverse. You say that when Mama comes, you will cancel the. That's the reverse. They are promising the reverse. Because they have no campaign. They have no message. So they are not promising the reverse. 1 week who will cancel? Who will keep? Well, so that's the reverse. Yeah. No message. No message because of the precarious situation in which we find ourselves. That this country is bankrupt. Ishak, 6 years ago, your 100,000 Ghana cedis that you had could buy you a decent car. A decent car could build you a house. Today, your 100,000 will last long if it takes 1 week, if it stays 1 week with you. Cannot even mold 1,000 blocks. That is the level that we have descended. That if you were a businessman and your business were wholly confined to Ghana, that the cedis that you accumulated over the years is now worth less because the value of the cedi has dropped like dry leaves in the Hamatan. Dropped by the creation of who? This government. That when the Bank of Ghana printed the humongous amount of money to support government, they invariably threw about 1 million people into poverty. So the trade-off of the Bank of Ghana supporting this disastrous, reckless, incompetent government of Nana Akufo-Addo was to move 1 million people of this country into poverty. What justification again do they have to tell us to vote them? I'm convinced beyond doubt from what I have seen on the ground in my interaction with the people on the ground and backed by the survey done by the African Peer Review, in which they said 8.9 out of 10 people, every 10 Ghanaians, believe that this country is moving in the wrong direction. It means if we do it in percentage terms, 90% of the people of this country believe that this country is moving in the wrong direction. That 90% includes people who support or who hitherto supported the MPP. I'm inviting all of them, in particularly the Alliance for Change, the MPP. PSC has no representation on the ballot yet. But they share in our ideology. They want to lift people out of poverty. They believe that what commonly belongs to all of us must be enjoyed by all of us. That's their philosophy. And they also believe that nobody, no matter where you are in this country, should be left behind in the forward march of this country. That's their belief. We share that with you. We share that with you. Let's come together and put to sleep these people, because they do not mean well for us. Do you know that when they oppose the redenomination of the, when they introduce, or they don't oppose, they reintroduce the redenomination of the cedi and pegged it at 50 cedis as the highest denomination. They went ahead when they came into office to print the 100 notes and the 200 notes. Not for any good economic reason, but part of their Ejepa experiment to lay their hands on the resources of this country are here, not yet verified. So I won't say it on the platform, but Asambaba Debi are here that some of these 200 and 100 cedi notes have been packed ceiling high in some rooms and in some houses. Some of them near where we are here. Asambaba Debi, thank you so very much.
Alhaji has information that is vital to our survival. Alhaji Yunusa Husseini is one member of Parliament for Tamale Central. And we have to move on to another discussion before we do that. Musa Batoeng Asawasi says John Mahama, with a proven track record in infrastructure development, seeks a second term to focus on economic stability and job creation through his 24-hour economic policy. Supported by Julius Debra, Mahama aims to drive sustainable growth, improved livelihood, and foster a stronger, more resilient Ghanaian economy. No wonder Ghanaians called him the nation builder. Hashtag Mahama for President 2024. That's Musa Bato's comment. There's Edie Gideon, good morning to you. Says the MPP is a problem on its own and they do not understand or acknowledge their problem at all. And that is why they are creating more problems for their caucus, the government, and the entire country, Ghana. It is very sad that the MPP leadership is leading with emotions and ego. Whichever way the MPP puts it, government business will still suffer irrespective of the APEC for bizarre directives given to the House of Parliament. Their days, however numbered, will come very soon. It's commenting on our next topic. Prince Henry Koforidua says, comparing the NDC to the MPP is like comparing Jesus Christ to Satan. The NDC will build the NDC will build, and the MPP will come and destroy everything. Ghana's biggest problem is the MPP and must be voted out come 7th and not be given the chance to come close to the seat of government. We must do communal labor to make sure we vote for the visionary leader, John Mahama, to come and rescue Ghanaians and reset Ghana for us all. When the wicked rule, the people suffer. Proverbs 29:2. That is Prince Henry in Koforidua. Okay. This is from George. Uncle George says, Bidizana Square must be on your show every Saturday. I listened to her elegant conversation on Onuya FM yesterday. So what a fantastic communicator. That's coming from George. Thank you very much for that comment. This one is coming from Papa BC says, hi Sana, did you follow the MPP's press conference via Richard Ahyangba talking about some secret documents from the NDC quarters which is not making them rule well? So Richard has admitted that they are clueless in government. Again, why are they contesting this very election knowing fully well, should they win, Almighty God forbids, the so-called documents will still be around from 2025 beyond, hence they can't govern well. You see the look stock coming from the quarters of the MPP. Seriously speaking, that's why Ghana is temporarily very sick under Nana Baumia regime. Hence, we need a reset very fast. Via His Excellency John Mahama. Papa BCU sent that right here in Accra. There's a comment from, okay, says, that I should address Beatrice well. She went to law school, passed her exams, didn't graduate on Sunday, didn't go to school with her father's certificate and can't find a certificate if need be. On behalf of all those who are affected by this government heist of our savings and bank accounts, I want to congratulate Dr. Amin Adam for stealing our $12 billion to pay for Kenoforiata's foolishness and then telling us that Ghana has benefited. Greetings to the one and only lawyer, Alhaji Yunusa Husseini, my erudite brother, who also passed his exams, didn't graduate on Sunday, didn't go to school with his friends, and knows his classmate. And says, talk about Asembeba Debi. Where does Afenyimakin live? Okay. Anyway, that's Kujo Chumbwa for sending those comments. I don't know where this whole matter of people graduating on Sunday, going to law school, among others. He uses the appearance of other lawyers to make that point every opportunity he gets. Well, let's move on to another discussion. No matter how you put it, there's a problem in Parliament that needs to be resolved. So different people have different views of what it is we are faced with. But there needs to be a way to resolve this. So what should be the way forward? I can afford 10 minutes each for each of my panelists on this issue. Okay, I'll start with Lawyer Pierre Dankwa again on the issue of what's transpiring in Parliament. What we understand is that the MPP MPs have actually triggered a recall of Parliament. They said there's some urgent business to be done. The NDC MPs say, when we come back, we'll sit at the same place. If you want to do business, go and see to where there are vacant seats. So there's certainly an issue. The Supreme Court still has that order. So we'll see how that plays out. But in the meantime, way forward, the discussion we're having. Lawyer?
For me, the issues happening in Parliament, like I told you earlier, is a crisis, is a constitutional crisis, clearly. Also, it reflects the dire degradation in regard to principle by people that we gave our political powers to. And it reflects a very dangerous situation where, in my view, our democracy is being reduced to a kakistocracy. You understand? Because what's the foundation of all this issue? You know, I've termed this crisis as very needless. When you called me on cold, it's a very needless crisis. And if our leaders, people who took an oath to uphold the law, would respect principle, we wouldn't be in this crisis in the first place. Because the issue is simple. The issue borders on whether or not certain 4 persons have left their parties. Because that's the issue. You know, Article 97 1G states clearly that if you leave the party on whose ticket you were elected into Parliament, if you leave that party, then you would vacate your seat. Indeed, the nature of that clause is even imperative. So first of all, it's a call on the MP themselves to vacate the seat. That's the first, because Article 97.1 this is that a member shall vacate their seat, then the G, if they leave the political party on whose ticket they came. It's simple. It's very, very straightforward. Yes, and I hold the views of those who say that, see, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand this. Very straightforward. Now, I think also, even though it would be very difficult for me to understand, but at least I would have understood if this was the first time this issue was coming up. Because this issue came up in 2020. And the Speaker took a certain act. The act for which the MPs are saying is unconstitutional. Then the question is, so when it happened in 2020, why didn't they speak up? Because they took an oath to defend the Constitution. So if in 2020 this issue came up and they kept quiet, then they've breached that oath. So those of them who were in Parliament at that time. You get. Now also, MPP, all this have showed clearly that they are now a threat to our democracy. You understand? It is not enough to say that you want to sack them. They are actually a threat to our democracy. Because see, what is the most important thing that this democracy seeks to achieve? This democracy seeks to achieve and guarantee the concept of the rule of law. That's the fundamental focus of our constitution, of this democracy. Because it is only the rule of law that can guarantee us our lives, our right to our lives. That can guarantee for us our right to our liberties. That can guarantee for us our right to pursue our individual happiness. Without the rule of law, there'll be chaos. Then the state of nature, which necessitated that social contract, you understand, would be returned. You understand? So if a political party that was formed to build that right culture that will sustain this democracy takes actions which are adverse to the rule of law, because when you're talking about the rule of law, you're talking about an abhorrence to arbitrariness. You understand clearly? You are talking about certainty of the law. You must be certain about what the law is. Now, their Constitution, Article 3, what does it say? Very clear. That if you go and support an independent candidate, if you yourself you go independent, or if you support any candidate who is contesting against the candidate the MPP has sponsored, then you are deemed to have forfeited your membership. It's clear. Do you need to? The day I hoisted this yellow cap along with Alhaji and Alhaji, I ceased to be a member of that party, and I'm not going back. I ceased to be a member of that party. When Alhaji and Alhaji went independent, he ceased automatically to be a member of the MPP. He didn't need any letter to be written to him. Did I need any letter to be written to him? When I know him to Hosandoye, Solomon Usu, and all the members, the believers in the principles and philosophies of liberal democracy, who have not departed, but who felt that the MPP had departed from those principles, that right now they have been filled with familiar spirit. When we decided that we will stay where we are, so that I don't need to be called MPP. People change their names all the time, doesn't mean that they've changed their character. You understand? So they are MPP by name, but it is now familiar spirit party. They don't believe in the rule of law. And so, where the constitution says something clearly, they want to change their understanding of those, that Article 3. You understand? Now, if I had an argument that made me not convinced that they are a threat to national security, to the security of this country, that they have the right. In fact, it was the honorable MP for Toulon constituency, I think last week, against what's it called? My own lecturer.
He didn't finish his SSS. How can you be referring to him?
But he said this. And
he said it.
He said it on news file. His party didn't right to distance themselves from the view he expressed. The party is actually acting in a manner in support of the principles he advanced on news file. That the party reserves the right to them that. Sorry, I was going to use which I know you'll be very angry with me if I mention you in any conversation concerning MPP. That let's say MPP member A, or in the case of Andre Siama, he said he was going independent. Then the party reserved the right to sack him. So that and wrote a letter to that effect. But when these MPs decide to go independent, then the party reserves the right to say, okay, for you, we will not sack you. Now, so for such a party, do they reserve the right to even put themselves up to be considered for position for leadership in this country? I'm telling you, they are a threat to national security. And this bunch, our focus shouldn't just for them to lose 2024. Our focus should be to create a system where they cannot survive, where their likes cannot survive. Because you see, we cannot create a system where people who hate rule of law, who hate the only way our liberties can be protected, they are waging a war against democracy. Because immediately you promote acts of arbitrariness, immediately you support those actions, then you are waging a war against the rule of law. And when you are waging a war against the rule of law, then you cannot survive, or you should not survive as a political entity. Because then you don't understand, then you have an interest, other than the interest for which you should even become a political party. And that's why consistently they've delivered a governance, in spite of the oath their president took, the president of Ghana took, the president they sponsored. He's delivered a governance which is adverse to the oath he took, the oath to be faithful to Ghana, the oath to defend, protect, and defend the constitution of Ghana, the oath to dedicate himself to the well-being of every single Ghanaian. He has to be fair to all manner of Ghanaians. He's breached that oath. And the political party who touts their liberal democratic credentials say they are firm believers in the concept of the rule of law. They should be the ones starting the impeachment procedure against the president. They should be calling for the impeachment of the president, but they won't do that. And they are showing that character, that spirit, that familiar spirit in how they've handled this issue of the parliamentary crisis. They don't care about Ghana. So they don't care to do any act that will throw this stable constitution, democracy, into chaos. They don't not call military people. What they're doing there. So supposing the wire in the military man's head twigged, it twigged, and he called the gun. Mr. Speaker, get down. I've not taken over the country. What would they have done? create a situation where you put this as system of governance at peril. But they are doing so because they don't regard principle. You need Solomon to define, to understand Article 97.1. And having done that, their majority leader, you understand, who ought to believe in the independence, in the equality, you understand, of Parliament, who needs to understand why we need the concept of separation of powers to be upheld. Because I'm glad that I have my senior counsel here, I have Beatrice herself here, you understand, because we are running what we call a constitutional democracy, and it's premised on the principle of constitutionalism, which simply means limiting the powers of government. And one of the tools that they use to achieve that constitutionalism, beyond judicial review, beyond the concept of natural justice, one of the critical concepts is the separation of powers. You understand? Which simply poses that, listen, we have 3 different powers of government. And so to better achieve our liberties, we are not going to place all those powers into one hand. We are going to place different powers into different hands with the purpose of serving as checks and balance on each other. This issue come. What did the Speaker do? All he did was to inform Parliament on a vacancy based on the Constitution. And you take this to the Supreme Court. You take this to the Supreme Court. So right now, I'm sure in what's it called, 70s, when they lose less than 20, when they get less than 25%, and they'll go to Supreme Court for interpretation. Whether if you get less than 25%, it means you've lost an election. So we shouldn't. There's a rule of law. It's not a rule by law. You understand? So listen. My view is simple. You see? So you threatened MP. As I said, they are not a threat to national security. Because when all these things were happening, they had the effrontery, the temerity, the cockroach audacity to tell Ghanaians that if this majority-minority nonsense is not resolved in their favor, then we're going to abandon Parliament until... Did he not say that?
Yes.
Well, when he was saying, he forgot that the government had business to do. He forgot. And so right now that he thinks there's a stay, he wants to come back and do business. And so whose interest is he advancing? Those arguments they are making, that they care about the country, can it be legitimately made? Can it? So we have some few weeks to the elections. My view is that we have about 4 weeks. I think we need a massive reform in our constitution. And one of the massive reforms in the constitution is, first of all, so I have a problem with that clause. Because when Honorable Fuseni was an MP, he was not an MP for the NDC. He was an MP for every single member of his constituency. You understand? Because this democracy we are practicing, you understand, is also a representative one. Okay. So when the MP is my MP, don't get another MP, he's an NDC MP, but he represents me too. You understand? I think we need to reform that and remove that clause. Okay. The mere fact that you change your party shouldn't. But however, as things stand today, that's the position. Until there's a reform, that's the position. And those for MPs, they are no longer MPs for interest and purpose. So when they resume, should they resume Parliament? The NDC 136, they should conveniently. You understand? Conveniently, in solidarity with what the Constitution is saying, go and sit in the majority side. If they want, they shouldn't come. But Ghanaians right now know them. Come December 2024, you know there'll be 277 elections, one presidential and 276, they say. Now you know the caliber of your NPP people. They don't care about you. All they care about is how to secure their personal interests. So when we are voting, vote for Lanchamantin, vote for Lanchamantin, and vote against all these people, the majority, now the minority leader, these people who don't even have regard to principle, who don't have regard to the system that will protect your interests, your lives. Vote against them and vote for people who care about Ghana. Vote for people who care about Ghana. And let us collectively as a people say no to any political party who has become a threat to national security. The MPP is a threat to national security. We must say no to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Val Osman says Afenima is in court to test the ignorance, bias level or otherwise of the judges. When the Constitution says if you do so forfeit your seat, is it talking about seat that they don't have yet? Which seat did the Constitution say you forfeit if you do something like that? Is it the seat that they are yet to contest for, which no one can tell if they will win or not? How do you vacate something you don't have? Let's stop. Good morning to you, man. There's Alhaji and Alhaji. The only way to kick out this clueless MP administration is to be vigilant on polling day. There's John Bawa. Is it Abeduni Robert? Who says, Senna? Good morning. The MPP are implementing the Ejapadia document, so those in the MPP party should not take this for granted because their future is at risk and because of tribal policies they are following at Chain Mafia. Beatrice.
I don't even know what to say. I wanted to concede my time to my senior because he's practically made all the points. I was wondering if he was even looking at my notes. I was mentioning all that. But I think what I want to say is that this issue should be a wake-up call when we talk about the NPP. It's not just because we are doing politics. And President Nana behaves like an Arabian king and behaves as if when the father was dying, he called him and said, you know what, I will Ghana to you. You know, the MPP has a history of willing Ghana and properties of the state like Sir John did and in many instances. And so they have a certain nauseating sense of entitlement, which is not rooted in this concept of democracy. And sometimes when people say that Nanado did not really attend law school, even if you do not have evidence, you cannot also dispute some of these allegations because of his actions and inactions. Because I doubt, and there are 3 lawyers here, how somebody goes to law school, sits in the constitutional law class, writes a constitutional law exams and passes, and confronted with a situation, plunges all of us into a constitutional crisis. And has another leader in parliament, now the minority leader, Afenyo Markin, who is more concerned about how he is addressed and what position he occupies than the general welfare of the Ghanaian people. But I want to send a note of caution to the MPP and to say that the past is not the present. And the things they did in 2020, believing that the NDC was so civilized, the NDC would not push and make reckless statements because President Mahama has not made statements like there will be another Arab Spring, and now sebi obia wo mienu or die be die. And so some way somehow they are under a certain wrong impression. I think that if anybody knows the NDC better, it should be the MPP. What the capabilities of the NDC as a political party are. So I want to say that all these things we are having, or all these constitutional crises we are having, it's because Nanado behaves like somebody who was not elected, like the country is for him. So we are all subject to his feelings. When he is happy, we have to be happy. When he's sad, everybody must suffer. Otherwise, one of the things that Parliament does a lot is consensus building. In fact, Parliament builds consensus so much that if you do not understand the workings of Parliament, sometimes they say that MPP and NDC are the same. In fact, the notion that the MPP and the NDC are the same came from the consensus that Parliament built. Because normally, they would have agreed on the way. Even when you see them, sometimes you see us fighting. Honorable is on some page with me. You see us fighting our parliamentarians. Because even when they appear to be opposing the thing, by the time you're right, the thing has passed. So Parliament built consensus. So for us to get to this level, to the extent that we are fighting over chairs, and the MPP's concern is not you and I, but where they sit, should tell you the levels of lowness that these guys have introduced into public discourse and our governance structure. And you know, I want to say that the MPP are a group of dishonest people. That sometimes it appears the only time you can be honest and have a little bit of conscience is to leave them. Because in very recent times when I watch TV and I listen to communicators from Alliance for Change, I wonder, so all of you were in the MPP. Lawyer here has made a very brilliant submission. And sometimes I wonder, on last Thursday I was on the show with one other person called Rodalyn. And if you look at the questions, and she said, as for her, she's never been part of the MPP.
Yeah.
She's been CPP.
Yes, she was CPP. But it appears that when you associate with the MPP, Ghana would not matter again. It is MPP, their pockets, and Ghana last. First of all, we were in this country when organized labor said they wanted to go on strike because of the rippling effect of the Galamsey. And the presidents who had this LI 2462, who was the one granting mining leases for people to go and, mine in the forest bodies and destroy our water bodies, who could have unilaterally said that, you know what, the LI empowers me, so by even an executive fiat, I would not implement the provisions of the LI. Let's ban Galamsey activities in the forest and in water bodies. He could have just said that. Because he's not committed to fighting the Galamsey, said, you know what, don't go on strike. I will take the LI to Parliament for Parliament to revoke the LI. And they created the impression that they had to recall Parliament to come and, conduct this government business. So that the first priority of government business was the revocation of LI 2462. Then they said that, you know what, in this country, it matters not what our challenges are, whether you are unemployed, whether you can't pay your rent, whether you can't have a hospital, water, everything, our solution should be free SHS. And that the NDC is so opposed to the free SHS that they needed to bring a free SHS bill to solidify the free SHS and make sure that no government comes to abolish the free SHS. To the amazement and disappointment of Ghanaians. The memo, which is a petition and asking the Speaker to recall Parliament within 7 days, does not contain, as part of what the MPP considered urgent government business, a revocation of the LI 2462. It does not contain that. It does not contain the free SHS bill. It contains the interstate successions bill. A law, I want to see the memorandum to that act to see what even our challenges are currently with it. And the fact that the government wants to go for a $250 million additional loan. They need money for elections to come and share for you. So 6 weeks that we are going to an election, these are the things the government considers urgent government business, for which reason they have to recall Parliament. So what happened to the revocation of the LI? What happened with the much cherished protection of the free SHS. It tells you the levels of dishonesty, the hypocrites we are dealing with. The people have no regard. This in law we call negligence. It is a wanton disregard to our welfare as Ghanaians. They simply don't care. The president, people can be complaining that we have cholera outbreak, and he will charter the private jet. He wants to bath in the air. That was, and I mean, all we can do is to come and sit here and talk. He is not even watching the show. He is probably not even listening to any Ghanaian media. He's taking, I mean, some of the most expensive wine and Bel Air and having VSOP and doing a lot of things. They simply don't care. And I think that let nobody mislead you that the speaker has done something wrong. What they are trying to do is to cause disaffection for Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what happened last Tuesday has shown that he is a very wise person. He has practically had to save our democracy. These guys are a group of people who do not care. You see, they can't even see beyond their nose. This is the president that came to tell us there will be no haircut. And in less than 2 weeks, he could not even see that there will be a haircut. These guys must be rejected by every Ghanaian. The MPP must go back and restructure their party because we also need our democracy. And so they have to go back home and sit, have a sober reflection, and you and I have that duty to vote against them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ishak, I'll come to you shortly. Mansour Akpabli says, Akufo-Addo in 2016 told us to try him and Bawumia. We tried them, and they ended up leading us into the trying times we have found ourselves in today. As if that is not enough, they are again adding salt to our injuries, telling us to try Bawumia, who failed woefully as the chairman of the economic management team to become president. We are not going to do that. We will kick them out of government by voting massively for John Dramani Mahama and the NDC to come back to power, to implement the 24-hour economy and many beneficial policies to get Ghana back on its feet. He sent that from Ayawa. So, and then Ambassador Sampiale says, so shameful that a country like Ghana is being held hostage as a result of who is majority and who is minority. The structure of parliament is anomalous because of the numbers. The gazetted results of the parliament is 137 for NDC and MPP, and it was wrong to have permanently added the independent MP to the MPP. To solve the trouble, the speaker should simply call the MPP the government caucus or group and opposition caucus or group. Ishak.
Thank you, Sena. When there's a seeming constitutional crisis and in a panel, it appears you are the only non-lawyer, you have to be very careful. But I think that I am competent enough to take a bite on this topic. I am competent enough to take a bite on this topic, listening to Lawyer Apia Dankwa, because I think that before law there is common sense. And if you don't even have common sense, I'm not sure that you will be a good lawyer. And ever since the emergence of this unpalatable situation in Parliament, we have listened to all manner of lawyers, all manner of experts, governance experts speak on this matter. And I think that there has not been unanimity. The Article 97, 1G and H, that is quite easy for anyone to understand, according to Councillor Apia Dankwa, including those who are not even lawyers like me, is being interpreted in a certain manner by people who are considered the best of lawyers. And I cringe when I listen to some of those people. Now, I've also listened to the reasons being given by the NPP, for most especially according to the Deputy Majority Chief Whip, now Deputy Minority Chief Whip Habib, that the party affected by the decision of the MPs in question would have to write. Now, amongst the four, there is an independent candidate. So who will write? If the NDC would have to write for their member of parliament for, where is that constituency? Memphis Central.
Central, yes.
And then the NPP would write for that of Suhum and then Gumwa West, Agona West,
Yeah.
because they are members of parliament on the ticket of those parties. Who would write to the speaker concerning Andrew Esiama? He is an independent candidate. So I see a certain level of absurdity there. They are not saying that anybody should come and notify the speaker. That provision simply says that once the speaker realizes that there is that vacancy as a result of a certain trend of conduct, he simply has to communicate same to the House, which the speaker did. And for me, I think that all of the decisions that the speaker have taken on this matter, up to the point of adjourning the House indefinitely, I think that deserves some big applause. I want to say that sometimes I ask myself what would have happened in this unique if parliament if we did not have somebody cast in the mold of Alban Bagbin as speaker, because his experience, his wisdom, his tact and all of that come into play at any point in time that there's a decision to be made. You understand? The decision to even adjourn the House indefinitely, in my opinion, would afford Parliament to look at how it will be able to resolve the matter before the House will reconvene. So I don't even understand the haste with which the minority, led by Afenyo Marken, is trying to recall Parliament. Because you claim, even before Tuesday's proceedings, that if you went to the House and the NDC caucus are taking over your seats, you were going to boycott, and you boycotted. It means the reason for boycotting was because of the sitting arrangements. I have heard the speaker say that those blaming him for what happened on the floor of the Parliament, their blame is misdirected, because they know that he is not responsible for sitting arrangements in Parliament. It is the work of the clerk to Parliament. And then NDC indicates that if you recall Parliament 10 times, that is where we would go and sit. So why is Afenyo Marken saying that they are recalling Parliament? Are they now prepared to sit where they are supposed to sit now as minority? Because from all indications, the speaker did nothing wrong. So I did not even understand why Afenyo Marken ran to court to interfere in the workings of Parliament, when Article 115 clearly insulates Parliament from any such control as that from the judiciary, like Afenyo Marken, a leader of the House, is seeking to do. They should not behave like crybabies. They should stand up. They are there to perform a certain function, especially that they are the caucus representing government, giving the responsibility to prosecute government business on the floor of the House. That is clear dereliction of duty from the side of Afenyo Marken and the rest of the MPs in Parliament. For me, I don't want to think that this is something beyond being solved. The NPP must accept that the trajectory has changed. Something happened. It is apparent. Everybody sees it. It's not rocket science. I did not even want to cite the president said in 2020. Was it because it did not affect the numbers in Parliament that you were unperturbed, you were not bothered about it? And today the same principle has been applied. And they say that as for principle, it is principle. Principle is principle. It is wholly kept or wholly unkept. It cannot be partially kept or partially unkept. No. That constitutional provision speaks loudly even non-lawyers like me can understand it. They should accept it so that the 6 weeks left for the lifetime of this parliament can come to pass.
Thank you, Ishak. I'll come to Alhaji to conclude for me. This is from George again, saying that the three arms of government operate under the supreme law of the state, which is the constitution. The problem of Afenyimakins is his group is that they equate the constitution to the Supreme Court. So when they shout rule of law, they mean Supreme Court. Very wrong. That's coming from George. There's Nana says Article 97.2, which is unfortunately ignored by most commentators in defense of Article 97.1, allows a member of parliament to retain his seat. Here it goes. 2. Notwithstanding paragraph G of clause 1 of this article, that is Article 97, a measure of parties that at the national level sanctioned by the party's constitution or membership of a coalition government, of which his original party forms part, shall not affect the status of any member of parliament. So therefore, clause 2 of Article 97 settles it all. Thus, a member of a parliament shall retain his seat only in the event of a measure and not in the circumstance of Article 97(1)G. That's coming from Nana. Dr. Percy says, in the face of the MPP's grand plan for mass disenfranchisement of voters in NDC strongholds for the digitalized theft of the December 2024, I should ask, who really guides the NDC on strategy? Whilst the party abandoned its drive to get the roots of the machinery for electoral theft, the MPP-EC have put in place via forensic audit of the biometric register and ECIT system. And why is the NDC diverting energy and attention to a fruitless quest for majority in parliament? A majority that they meekly gave away in the December 2020 elections. Questions, my friend. That's Dr. David Percy. And then, okay, this Kojo Chumbuafu again. So now my regards to my brother lawyer, Apia Dankwa too. My brother, you never walk alone. You also pass your exams. This one is a different direction. It says, your pass mark in constitutional law wasn't changed from 12% to 72%. You know your classmate. You didn't graduate on Sunday and weren't dismissed from your alma mater for puffing toxic, noxious plumes of illegal black smoke, which has now been made legal by this Akufo-Addo government, if only you puff says smoke in industrial quantities. Alhaji.
Well, you see, in this matter, only exposes the hypocrisy of the MPP. And I couldn't have agreed more with Apia Dankwa. The actions and decisions of the MPP, considering the ruling of Speaker Bagbin in the last few days, exposes them as bigots. In 2020, precisely in November 2020, the MPP as a party invoked its constitution and wrote to Mr. Speaker, Speaker Marco Kwe, to declare the seat of Andrew Amwaku Esiama vacant. When Speaker Okwe abided by the petition and granted the relief sought by the MPP, I raised a concern and I spoke on the floor of the House that it was important for the Speaker to allow a debate on the floor to get the general feel of what Parliament as an institution thought about Article 97(1)G and H. They ignored me and pronounced. 4 years. The MPP saw absolutely nothing wrong with the decision until Speaker Bagbin did what Speaker Okwe did. They are now in law trying to tell us what is different in this situation. That's what they're trying to tell us. So I've heard Marco Okwe, my professor, he taught me politics in Ghana at the Department of Political Science, University of Ghana. He's not saying, oh, because the party did not petition Parliament, so Speaker's jurisdiction was not invoked. Ishak has answered it beautifully. So Ishak, never mind. You don't lack anything in law.
In fact, I'm in my second year.
You don't lack anything, you will pass. You might even get a prize. So he has answered it beautifully. So if MPP writes for the MPP MPs, NDC writes for the NDC MP, who writes for the independent? That's the absurdity. Thank you so very much for pointing out that level of absurdity. See, Apia Donko said something that, so about a week ago, I had a debate with a governance expert. And when I pointed that out to him, he conceded. When we had the first decision, and then there's this second decision, you were building the blocks of the rule of law as against Article 97, 1, G and H. So there had been an earlier decision and then a subsequent decision. So members of Parliament can now reasonably predict with a certain degree of accuracy the consequences of their actions. That's what the rule of law. So when you talked about predictability, the second leg of the principle of rule of law is certainty. Certainty. Now, what has MPP? So I agree with you again that they are a threat, a veritable threat, not only a threat, a veritable threat to our democracy. So when it suits them, they agree. When it doesn't suit them, they disagree. If you want the things that disturbs a democratic experiment is inconsistency. Consistency should be a virtue that we aspire to in our democratic experiment. So, Babon was right. He was right. He said he was not bound by the decision of Speaker Makwe. He was right there too. But he came to the same decision Makwe came to. Fantastic. No. And then Beatrice. You see, Beatrice, let me seek your permission to use you as an example. Beatrice is the second deputy spokesperson, the deputy spokesperson for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. So as that's her capacity now. If Beatrice does anything that is inconsistent with that office, it's an office of John Dramani Mahama. If she does anything that is inconsistent with that office, and that will lead her to leave that office, it doesn't require John Mahama to write a letter. So, the fact that a member of Parliament on the ticket of a political party is sponsored, that's what the Constitution says, a political party law, is sponsored by the party. That position, that office of a member of Parliament is a position of the party. And when my party met in Hoa, I told all the members, they invited me to speak to members of Parliament. I told them they were holding offices of the party. And that they had a duty to subject their personal views to the views of the party. So if you take a step that is inconsistent with your party's constitution, and that prescribes that if you take a certain step, you automatically lose your membership of the party. And if you are occupying an office of the party, tell me how that can be reconciled. It's totally incongruous. Totally incongruous. You cannot be a member of a party and continue to hold an office of the party. But we'll leave that to the Supreme Court to pronounce. But that leads me to the Supreme Court. Please, the Supreme Court should be a bastion, or the courts is a bastion for the protection of the fundamental rights and liberties of all of us. they should not allow themselves to be used as willing tools of manipulation. They should not. You see, we the people, that's the universal creed of democracies. We the people have elected unto ourselves a government, created in whose name the powers of government are exercised, have said, well, we are going to create 3 arms of government, and we are going to vest each government with certain with responsibilities. And that Montesquieu's theory has been proven to be valid. That if we vest power, all powers in one institution, it leads to tyranny. And so we are going to distribute the power, and we are going to create countervailing forces, or if you want, checks and balances, and ensure that no individual, no single institution will have power and dominance over all the other institutions. So if Parliament is working consistent with the Constitution and the mandate granted it by the Constitution and the standing orders, the Supreme Court has no business restraining it. No, you can't do that. It is only when Parliament strays out of its mandate, okay, in terms of the Constitution and the standing orders, that the Supreme Court can restrain Parliament, because they are doing something which is unconstitutional, and that is what Article 2 of the Constitution says. Somebody brings an action and says that what they are doing is unconstitutional, is inconsistent. But immediately they keep to the Constitution. How can you restrain it? You have no such power. The power you have, which is a power by extension, is the power in Article 130 to make final, authoritative, binding pronouncements on what the provisions of the Constitution mean. And so, in J.H. Mensah and the Attorney General, J.H. Mensah had gone to court to say that, oh, ministers of state cannot continue in office. So, the term of office of a minister is coterminous to the term of office of the president. And so when the president is re-elected, that is why he swears a new oath, because that term has come to an end. And in excess of the power vested in the president in Article 58, the president now appoints new members of his government. So those new members must also be what? Be vetted. The Supreme Court agreed and made a binding, final binding pronouncement on the interpretation of that provision, that after the term of office of a president, if the president wins, or the new ministers you will appoint will be subjected to vetting. Authoritative. It binds everybody. Everybody knows that that's the law now. But me and you, everybody, when we go to court, when we are speaking to our friends, we interpret the Constitution also. When we are interpreting Article 78, majority of ministers of state must come from Parliament. Now, do we need the Supreme Court to do that? We count the ministers and we take the numbers. So we don't. So we interpret the Constitution. Akufa did not go to the Supreme Court to ask if they say majority, what does it mean? No, so the Constitution, everybody interprets it. But where there is conflict, and where the my interpretation and your interpretation will lead to a certain level of absurdity, then we go to the Supreme Court for it to make a final, that's what I said, final, binding, authoritative pronouncement. So what was the stay for? Then you find the reasons. I come to the reasons. First of all of us, 3 of us here are lawyer plus a law student. The Supreme Court has no speculative jurisdiction. No speculative. So they can't tell us that government business will be affected. What government business? And how will it be affected? The Supreme Court cannot speculate. You can't go to court to invoke the speculative jurisdiction because it has no speculative jurisdiction. Then you find the Supreme Court saying that government business will be affected. How did they come to that? I had a lecturer at the University of Ghana. Anytime you make such a distant statement, he asked you, what's the evidence? What's the evidence? That's the first one. Okay. I'm talking about the absurdity.
Yeah, you have to wrap up for me.
I'm going to wrap up so people to see how the state of execution was so absurd. The second one is that they said, oh, the people require representation. I agree with the Supreme Court. But the inconsistency of the Supreme Court is nauseating. I agree. Because Article 97(1)(c) is one of the grounds. Representation is one of the grounds that a member of parliament seat can be declared vacant. If that member of parliament absents himself or herself from parliament for 15 sitting days without the speaker's permission in writing and without reasonable explanation to a committee on privileges. So representation key. But I asked the Supreme Court to sitting here as your studio. So what animated their thinking when they issued an injunction to restrain Judge Kwesi from going to parliament? Because they did that. And they say fair hearing. They were not given fair hearing. They invoked the rules of natural justice, general rules. I say, Mr. Supreme Court, read Article 97, and you'll be left in no doubt that the framers of the Constitution knew where to require the rules of natural justice to be complied with, and where the rules of natural justice will not apply.
Okay.
So when the person dies, you don't wake him up and ask him, what killed you? To declare his seat vacant. When a person resigns under his hand, you don't invite that person to tell you what informed the resignation.
Okay.
But when the person absents himself, you must, the rules of natural justice is there in 97. So rules of interpretation. If the drafters of the Constitution had intended that the principles of natural justice will animate Article 97(1)(g) and H, they would have provided it.
Okay, Alhaji, thank you. Thank you. Let me say a big thank you to Alhaji, and of course, a big thank you to my panelists for today. First, let me say happy birthday to AJ Amenya, belated happy birthday to my colleague Bernard Alote, fantastic Bernard Alote, who celebrated his birthday earlier this week. Also to my former colleagues Joyce Vija, Erica Jekum, and a happy birthday to Priscilla Hemans, now Mrs. Ozu Secretary. And of course, a happy birthday also to Master Freeman, Cynthia Beckley, Apostle Abraham Lamte, and also to AJ Amenyago in the US. Happy birthday today to Richard Abrokwe Eje. I know you're watching the show. Happy birthday to you. And this is from Hilda, our friend at Lukusi Radio, who says, please kindly wish my mother a happy birthday for me. Her name is Madam Judith Ama Amenya. Tomorrow is her birthday. Kindly tell her we, her children, love her so much and everything she has done for us. May she live long and enjoy the fruit of her labor. We love her so much. So, happy birthday in advance to Madam Judith Ama Amenya. Well, a big thank you to Alhaji Inusa Fuseni, who is former member of Parliament for Tamale Central. A big thank you to Beatrice Sanan, who is deputy spokesperson for the John Mahama campaign. The last time she made a speech of the GBA president at the bar, at the bar conference. You recall, right? Anyway. And of course, always wonderful to see lawyer Apia Dankwa of the Movement for Change, Alliance for Revolutionary Change. And of course, a big thank you to Ishaq Awudu. Ishaq Awudu is celebrated your birthday this week, right? A belated happy birthday to you. He's General Secretary of the People's National Convention. A big thank you to the crew here at Pan African Television and to all the affiliate stations across the country. We are back same time next week with another edition of the show.
He has suffered to lead his people.
Truly African.
His Excellency the President of the Republic